Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session on grading in Canvas. Everybody's favorite activity, right? Not. I'd still be teaching in the classroom if it weren't for grading. God almighty, I love the classroom, but I hated the grading. So I found some way to get paid for playing with toys instead. But it's a necessary evil, so let's see how to do it as effectively and efficiently as possible so it doesn't take over our lives in Zoom. I'll apologize in advance for the dog in the background here. Sorry about that. Hopefully he will shut up shortly. Or I'll have to go and take care of it. Try not to do that. Okay. I'm Dave Giberson, for those of you I may not have met. I'm an old retired instructional design coordinator from online learning pathways at the district, and they've asked me to come back and help in this unprecedented time we're experiencing here. The process we're going to talk about today is I've got an outline for. Let me share my screen and share that with you. We're going to start by looking at the grade book itself and see how to use it, see the options you have, how to compute final grades, or how to set up computation for final grades and things like that. And then in the second half, hopefully the second half of the presentation, we'll talk about the actual grading process. And we'll look at grading all three types of assessments that you have available in Canvas: the homework assignment, quizzes, and gradable discussions. All of them will use the so-called Speedgrader, the grading interface in Canvas. We'll take a good solid look at that. So I'm going to keep this handy over here so that I can make sure I don't forget too much anyway. And let's get started. I've got a couple of sandbox play courses we're going to use today. I'm going to start out, since I'm going to start out talking about the grade book, I'm going to start with one that has some assessments and students in it. This is a sample course. And first, of course, we'll talk about how to access the gradebook. I think probably everyone knows you do that by going into the grades link in your course menu, and your gradebook will appear. It's a fairly standard tabular sort of gradebook in its default display anyway. Each column represents a different assessment, either, again, a homework assignment, a quiz, or a graded discussion. Each row represents a student. And the last row in the grade book generally holds activity by your test student, the one that you act as when you go into student view in your Canvas course. So that student is also recorded in the grade book unless you tell Canvas to clear that. Any assessment that you create in Canvas automatically gets a gradebook column. And by default, you'll see that column when you publish the assessment, though you can tell the gradebook to show you unpublished assessments too. But by default, you'll see assessments columns in the gradebook that are published. Your students, of course, are automatically populated in the gradebook when they're enrolled into your course by the automatic process that integrates PeopleSoft and Canvas. So you generally don't have to create gradebook columns. They're created for you. There is an exception to that rule. If you are, and this is really more likely to occur in a class that's actually being taught in a classroom, where a web enhanced class, we say, one that is meeting in a classroom, but you're using Canvas as a supplement to that. Sometimes you will have, many times, most of the time, you will have assessments in that course which are not fulfilled in Canvas, where students turn in, say, a writing assignment on a piece of paper, or take a quiz in class on a piece of paper, not on Canvas. Can you get those grades into your Canvas gradebook and use the Canvas gradebook to help you compute your final grades? And certainly you can. Yes, the answer is yes to that. The process for getting a manual column into your gradebook is a little bit of a workaround in Canvas. In Blackboard, we just had a button in the gradebook interface where we could just create a column, and then we could just enter grades into that column and have them computed or figured into the grade computation automatically. In Canvas, it's a little bit more of a workaround. In Canvas, we have to go to the Assignments tool in the course menu. The Assignments tool in the course menu is somewhat misnamed in Canvas. It should really be called the Assessments tool, because all assessments, all types of assessments that you can create in Canvas will appear in your Assignments tool. That includes homework assignments, tests, quizzes, and gradable discussions all appear here. And we'll talk more about the Assignments tool a little later when we're talking about grade computation. But right now, to see how to create a manual gradebook, or manually create a gradebook column, we need to go to the Assignments tool and create an assignment. And this Add Assignment button up here in the upper right-hand corner, and let me pull that in case that's underneath something that's showing on your screen. Here's the Add Assignment button in the upper right-hand corner of the gradebook, or of the Assignments tool. This means homework assignment, not quiz or a graded discussion. So here they're using the word assignments catholically to include any sort of assessment, and here they're using it specifically to refer to a homework assignment, which is one of my pet peeves with Canvas. But as long as we know that's the case, we can live with that. Creating a new assignment is something we cover in our assessment seminar, but it's a very simple process. I do have to give the assignment a name up here at the top of the screen. Let's say this is an in-class writing assignment, just for the sake of argument. Something that students are not going to submit to Canvas. They're going to turn into you on paper. We generally don't need a description for that, so we can just pass that up. We'll have to supply a number of points for it if we expect it to be included in grade computations. And we can assign, or we can include this assignment in one of the existing assignment groups that we may have. More about that later, but this is a homework assignment, so I'm going to put it in that group. That may have some implications for grade computation later on. Just by grade as points, we don't care. Submission type, in this case, is going to be either on paper or no submission. They're functionally the same for Canvas. Assuming, again, this is a grade that's coming from somewhere else, that's not being generated in Canvas. This assessment is not going to be fulfilled in Canvas. We can assign it to everyone. We can set due dates and availability dates. I'm not going to bother with that right now. And I'll just save this. And I'm going to publish it because it won't appear in the gradebook with the settings I have right now unless I also publish it. That, of course, publish, of course, means to make it available to students. And whenever you see the word publish in Canvas, at least that's consistent. It means make it available to students so students can see it. All right, so now let's go back to our gradebook. And probably that's all the way out here at the right. Yep, usually it adds things to the far right end of the gradebook. That's probably not where I want to leave it. And this is, now I'm going to show you the best thing about the gradebook in Canvas probably. If I want to move this gradebook column, all I have to do is click on the name of the assignment and drag it. I can only drag it so far at one time. I don't want to lose it. Ah, there it is. You can lose track of it too if you're not careful. I want this in with my other assignments. And that would be right there. So that's all there is to rearranging gradebook columns for you. I will caution you that that does not change the order in which the students see their grades in their grades tool. Their grades tool, of course, only shows them their grades, not anyone else's. But that would be a really bad thing. But the order in which they see their grades is something they determine. You can't affect that. So we now have a manually created column, and we can simply add grades to it, just like entering numbers into Excel by typing them in and so on. And this is something you can do in a class where you're accepting assignments outside of, or accepting things that are going to be graded that are done outside of Canvas.
Dave,
okay, yes.
If the student does not do the assignment, do we leave that dash or do we put a 0 in it to let us know that there's no points for that student?
It's advisable to make sure there's a 0 in there if the student hasn't submitted and is not going to be able to.
Okay.
Because a 0 here, or just leaving that a dash, will affect the way that the student's grade is computed. And we'll talk in more detail about that in a minute. And it can leave the student with an inappropriately rosy view of how well they're doing in the class.
Oh dear.
Given the way
Dave,
that
can you assign credit? I'm sorry, Dave, can you assign credit or no credit instead of points?
You can. When you create an assignment, there's an option, rather than having it the grade displayed as points, you can have it display as basically yes or no, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, done, not done, a binary check off.
I couldn't find that.
That's not in the grade book. It's in the assignment creation screens. If we go and just start another new assignment, it's right here. Complete, incomplete, it's called.
Right in front of me. Thank you.
Well, yeah, right. Only buried about 3 feet deep underneath.
Yeah, okay.
And no, that one's not easy to find, and it's in an odd place. So you wouldn't assume you'd have to look for it there. You'd think you could do that in the grade book. So.
Okay, well, thank you.
You bet. Good question. All right, so that's how gradebook columns arise. Let's see, at this point, let's just take a look at the menus here. in Gradebook and see what they do, what control they give you over the Gradebook. The first menu is the Gradebook menu in the upper left here. If you open that, you see you have two other options for what you see in the Grades tool. The default is called just the Gradebook view, or the class view, that shows you everyone and all of the assignments. If you go to individual view, you can see the grades for a single student. You just have to select the student whose grades you wish to see, and then you will see their grades down here. Then you can very easily go back and, using this menu up here, to the basic Gradebook view. So you can toggle back and forth between those. There's also Gradebook history, which can be good if you're trying to remember when you graded something, or if you want to go back and look and see a student's submission history. You can go to Gradebook history and you can see when you graded things. And if you have, say, a TA or something like that, you can see who graded it.
Yeah, good luck.
And get a description of each thing done and so on. And when grades were, if your grade was changed for whatever reason, there'll be a record of it here. So that's occasionally useful. And then I can just hit the grades link in the course menu again and go back to the basic Gradebook display.
Hi, Beth. How are you?
Now we can go to the View menu, and this determines how we see the Gradebook, or how things are organized in the Gradebook, I should say. We can first decide how the Gradebook is sorted. We can just, and by that I mean how the columns are arranged. We can arrange by the default order. The default order is the order in which the assignments were created in the course. Earlier assignments be on the left, later ones on the right. Or we can sort the columns by assignment name alphabetically, or reverse alphabetical order. We can order the columns by due date, by relative weight in the course, the number of points each one is worth, or we can arrange them by the modules in which they appear in the in your modules tool. In other words, which modules are they linked into, so that all the assignments in the first module would come first, and then the assessments in the second module would be arranged next, and so on. So you have a lot of control. And over top of all that, of course, is your ability to just drag columns around. So you have a lot of control over the order of columns in the Gradebook. You can also filter columns that you see. If you're, say, grading quizzes and you don't want to see your homework assignments and your gradable discussions, you can filter by either assignment groups or modules, or if you're using student groups, you can filter by those as well. These are just toggles to have the capability to filter by assignment group. You can just select that and you'll get a check mark there. And I've got it set so that I can filter either by assignment group or by modules. That is implemented right here in these two drop-down menus. These two you will not see necessarily unless you turn those filters on. These are filters. I can either see everything that's in all assignment groups, or since I have 3 assignment groups in my course, in my assignments tool, we saw that a minute ago, an assignment group for my gradable discussions, one for my homework assignments, and one for my tests. You might have different subdivisions, or you might have none at all. You might just have one assignment group, and this would be pointless. But if I want to see only my homework assignments, for instance, I can just click there, and the gradebook shortens considerably, and these columns are my homework assignments. Otherwise, it can be difficult to sort them out because there's no little icon here that tells you what each one of these is. These are homework assignments, but there's no indication that that's the case right here in the gradebook, nor is there anything in this context menu. So that can be helpful. But the default, of course, is to show all columns. And if I want to see only the assessments associated with my first module, which was topic 1, I can select that. And there was only one assessment in that first module. So if I'm grading the stuff from my first module in Canvas, I can get rid of everything else and not have it confusing my gradebook view. So you can really zero in on just exactly what you're working for at that moment in time. Or the default, of course, is show them all. Canvas uses colored highlights to specify a variety of different grade statuses, which include late assignment, missing assignment, which is one that's late and the due date is passed. Assignments that have been resubmitted can be in another color. Assignments that have been dropped or excused. You've decided not to make a student perform a certain assignment. All of these can have different color codes, and you set those color codes by clicking on this little menu here, and then you can choose the color that you want. And it's not a real friendly process because they don't give you a color wheel to choose from. You just have to know the hex code for the color you want, so most people don't bother. But that's what those various color codes stand for, different statuses. And you can choose the color that fits a certain status. There are also optional columns that you can display in the gradebook. The one that's probably very useful is the notes column. If you go to the view menu and select and click on notes, you get a new little column here into which you can type just free text that is information about that student that maybe you want to keep in mind. And you can change the width of that column by clicking and by moving the cursor right over the edge of it at the top and dragging it, click and drag it back and forth so you can get more room to write here. And if you click into a cell in the notes column, you get a little text box and you can type notes. And only you will see them. Another column, question we usually get there. No, the students can't see this, only you can. So if you know you're going to have trouble, or if you have a student who's working especially hard, or if there's a student who's going to be out of town at a certain time and they've arranged with you to make up work and so on, you can put notes like that in here. Handy little tool. Or you can hide that at any time by just turning it off. You can also choose to display assignments that you're working on but have not yet published, so that you remember that you have that assignment is going to show up in the gradebook. I don't usually want to do that. An unpublished assignment shows up in red, and or there's a red note on it that says it's unpublished, so you won't be too confused, but it does just kind of clutter up your gradebook, so usually we leave that off. The actions menu of the gradebook involves transferring grades out of Canvas to another place and back in optionally. Though usually we use the export more than the import. This is how you can back up your gradebook. so that should, for any reason, you lose contact with Canvas for whatever reason, you can still have your grades available. You can export your grade book just by clicking on the export link in this actions menu. The gradebook export starts immediately, and you'll know it's done when you see a file save dialog box pop up in your file explorer in Windows or a Finder window on the Mac. And you get this tells you that this course, the grades that were done on 6/23/2020. And you can save that. I think I've got a grade exports folder here. Obviously, save it somewhere you know where you can find it again, and click save. And now you've downloaded a copy of your grade book that can be opened up in a spreadsheet, probably Excel. I just double click this, Excel will open on another monitor, and I'll drag it over here in a second when it comes up. Yoo-hoo. It's downloading right now. And where'd it go? Come on. Come on, Excel, don't mess with me. Oh, darn. Quite sure what happened there. And Chrome has ditched the download. I don't want to spend time looking for that. Not quite sure what happened there. Normally it's quite smooth. And anyway, you just get a copy of the grade book that you can save to your local hard drive that you can open in Excel at any time. So it's nice to have a safe backup of your grades that's not in the cloud. It is also possible, though I'm not going to walk through that process, it's possible to load those grades into Excel, modify them in Excel if perhaps your grading scheme is too complex for the Canvas gradebook to handle itself. You can do grade manipulations in Excel and then load everything back into the Canvas gradebook so that your students can see their grades, which you can't do if you've got it, which is not possible if you've just got your grades in Excel. Indeed, posting grades through the Canvas gradebook is about the only way you can safely and legally post grades for your students these days with FERPA and whatnot, where you certainly can't hang a strip of grades and student IDs on your door anymore. You'd be, they'd be carrying you out of the building. Two burly guys would be carrying you out of the building immediately. So Canvas is one of the few ways you can allow your students to see their grades, and particularly when you're in an online course. And some people use, when we're teaching normally in the classroom, some people use Canvas just for that, just so that their students can see their grades. So, alrighty, let's see. Let's see. Oh, and there is a gradebook preferences menu way out here on the right. Let me pull that in again. This little gear icon out to the right, where you can set late policies and grade posting policies. Late policies refer to missing submissions or late submissions. You can set this so that if you do this at the beginning of the term, you can have Canvas automatically apply a grade for submissions that are missing. That is, submissions which are submissions that have not been made and that for which the availability date of the assignment has passed, so that students can no longer get to it. That constitutes a missing assignment. And you can have Canvas automatically give 0% credit to that, which saves you having to go through and add zeros manually. You can also set late submission rules. If you select that, you can have a certain percent of the available points for the assignment deducted for every day or every hour if you're a hard person, so that people can turn things in late, but it's going to cost them. And you can have that happen automatically, so you don't have to go through and manually reduce their grades by some set amount. You can have Canvas do that for you. You can even set a cellar, or a ceiling, I should say, to prevent the student's grade from being taken all the way down to nothing, if you so desire. Or you may be perfectly happy with a student who submitted too late getting no credit. That's up to you. Grade posting policies have to do with when grades appear for students. And the options are automatically have them appear to students as soon as you post them, or have them manually appear, or have you have to manually post them and remember to do so. Most people leave that at automatic, but it does give you an option to delay students being able to see their grades until you're ready to post them. All right, that pretty much covers all of the global menus and options with the gradebook, except for the search box. You can search for students if you have a very long list of students in your course, and you can't just sweep this conveniently at a glance. You can type the first few letters of a student's first or last name, and that student's row in the gradebook will appear right away. That's exceptionally useful for the folks who are grading in the online faculty certification program course right now, because there are over 1,000 people in that gradebook. And the only way really effectively to find one individual in that gradebook is to use this search box. Thank goodness for it. All right. There are also context menus associated with each gradebook column. And they're a little different depending on what kind of column it is. Here with the student name column, if I mouse over the column header, I see a little menu button, the 3 vertical dots appear. If I click on that, I see I can sort the entire gradebook on this column by name, which is the default, or by student information system ID, integration ID, login ID. And the order can either be alphabetic or reverse alphabetic, or numeric in the case of the ID, and so on. So you can control how the gradebook is sorted. By default, it's sorted alphabetically, A to Z, by student name. Nothing in the notes column. Grade columns, on the other hand, have a different context menu. If I click on that, it's more complex. Though I also have an option to sort the entire grade book by this column, either grade low to high, or I can sort by missing or late, so that I can group those at the top of the bottom and see who hasn't turned things in or who's late for that particular assignment. I can also access the Speedgrader for this assignment here, and then just work my way right down the column. That's the grading interface, where you actually view the student's submissions, assign a grade, and provide feedback. We'll see the Speedgrader in a minute. in another context. This is maybe the most useful tool, I think, to student retention anyway in the grade book, and that gives you the ability to message students using your basically the inbox tool in Canvas, the mail sender in Canvas. You can message students who, based on this particular assignment column, either haven't submitted it yet, haven't been graded, or people who scored less than or more than a certain amount or a percentage in that on that assignment. So you can very efficiently send out messages of warning or encouragement or congratulation, depending on what you select here, to students without having to go and jot down, these people have not yet submitted the assignment, so I need to send them a message, which will probably go on to their personal email if they've allowed that, warning them that, hey, it's just your time to submit this assignment is drawing to an end. Have you just forgotten, or are you having problems? Whatever, you can send anything you like. And you get a message, you get a subject line and a message box, just as you would with an email. And so it's a great way to encourage students who are perhaps not performing as you like. Great retention tool. You can curve grades. I strongly recommend against using this tool in Canvas. It is a blunt instrument. That's all I'm going to say. And you can cause damage that can take you some time to correct. You can set a default grade for the column. Don't do this until all students have submitted or the availability date for the assessment is passed. So that otherwise Canvas will apply this default grade to things it shouldn't. And be very, very careful if you have it overwrite already entered grades. Be sure you want to do that. Note that that is not the default. So you could set a default grade of 0 once everybody had, everybody who was going to submit it had submitted, and they'd all been graded. You could then set a grade of 0 for folks who had not submitted and are not going to be able to now, and have that set so that you didn't have to go through and manually enter zeros for those folks. But be careful with those. You don't want to do it at the wrong time. You want to wait until you're all done grading in that column. You can hide grades from students temporarily. You can enter grades either as points or percentages. The vast majority of the time people will select points, so that's the default. But you can say, well, you can enter percentages. You can download all of the submissions if it's a homework assignment or a test, for that matter. You can download all of the submissions for that assessment and have them offline and work with them there, or just have them backed up. And you can set the grade posting policy for an individual assessment, and the options are the same as we had. We could set globally later on, and I believe the individual column settings for this override the global grade posting policy. Though to be quite honest, I've never tested that. And each of these columns has the same options, basically. Now let's go and look at the total column here, since that's the payoff for all of this for the students. How does the total column work? Well, for starters, you can have your totals displayed as either points or percentages. Up to you. And if you don't like the total column all the way out to, on the right-hand end here, you can move it to the front, which will move it right next to the student name column. So that's up to you. Depends on your preferences in that regard. So those are things that you can set about the total column. But how is the total column arrived at? How is the number, either the points or the percentage that appears in the total column, arrived at? In other words, how does Canvas compute that total grade, which is basically your final grade? And how does it compute it as time moves, as you're moving through the course? Well, by default, the total column is pretty simple. The computation is pretty simple. Especially if you have it set to points, the number of points displayed here is simply the sum of the number of points earned by that student in all of the assessments to that point in the course. Pretty simple, just a simple sum. The situation is a tiny, and that's quite straightforward. The situation is a tiny bit more complex if we display percentages. Well, how are those percentages computed? Well, not that complicated. The Canvas adds up all of the points that the student has earned and then divides them by the sum of all the possible points for all the assessments in the course and multiplies by 100. Provides a percentage grade for the student. The complexity comes in there as well, what about, earlier in the course? That's simple enough at the very end of the term when everybody's turned everything in that they're going to. But what about the time when you're getting to that point where the students have not submitted some assignments because they're not due yet, or they haven't even gotten to them yet in the modules? How does Canvas handle that? Well, Canvas does what amounts to a running total on that. It only considers assessments that students have submitted in this percentage. So if a student has submitted one assignment and gotten full credit on it, their percentage total will read 100%. Even if there are 5 other assignments that they should have submitted and haven't yet, the student will still have 100%. This can obviously lead to an inflated view of students, an inflated view of the student's progress in the course for the student. What do you mean I got an F? I got 100%. No. And you can't alter that in Canvas. In Blackboard, we could change the way the total column was computed and have it either be running total or not. But here you can't do that. Canvas is going to do what I described. So the only way to ensure that a student's percentage total earlier in the course reflects how well they've done up to that point is to make sure that any assignments that have not been submitted and can no longer be submitted need to have zeros instead of dashes. And you can either enter those zeros manually, or you can have Canvas do it automatically for you using one of the tools we've just discussed. But keep an eye on it and make sure it's doing what you expect it's doing. In that event, these total percentages will be a reasonable indication of how well the student's done up to that point. Though there's one other thing. If a student has submitted one or more assignments and you haven't graded them yet, Canvas gives them the benefit of the doubt. it gives them something like a 99% grade on that assignment. And that's reflected in the running total. So that's one of the reasons why people often keep their total as points, because that's less ambiguous for the students. But I'm going to leave it at percentages for a reason here. Okay, so the default grade computation, let me reiterate, is pretty simple. When you create an assessment, you assign a number of possible points. The maximum credit a student would earn if they did the assignment perfectly. And then Canvas just adds up all of the all the points that the students earned, divides by the sum of the possible points in the course, and multiplies by 100. Straightforward. It's conceptually the most simple way to have Canvas compute your grade. In this way, each separate assessment is weighted, or its contribution, the contribution to each separate assessment to the final grade is weighted simply by the number of possible points you assign. So if one assignment is worth, in your mind, should be weighted twice what another one is, you assign it twice the number of points, which is conceptually simple, but it's a bit of a hassle when you're creating a course, because you have to think about every time you create an assignment, you have to think, well, how is this weighted? How should this be weighted relative to all the other assignments I've created? How many points does it deserve? And that can be a lengthy process for you. But once you've done it, then the grade computation is very simple. There is an alternative to that. And it harks back to what we often tell our students when we print out a syllabus or upload a syllabus to Canvas. Somewhere in that syllabus, we may have a little bit of a section where we say, well, your grade's going to be determined by the following factors. And it might be, quizzes, chapter tests, homework assignments, a final paper, and a final exam, or any other, there may be a number of different assessment types that are going to contribute to the final grade. And it's not uncommon to say that.
Are you guys gonna? I don't know how to turn it down. He's okay. It's other people when they're speaking.
Forgot to get my participants tool up there. Okay, I've just muted everyone just to be on the safe side, but you can always unmute yourself. Okay. And we might assign a percentage grade to each one of those grade categories. Like we might have 10% of the total grade, and we might say that 10% of the total grade is going to be the quizzes, and 30% is going to be the chapter exams, and so on. And then translating that to actual weights in your Canvas gradebook, if you're weighting each individual assessment, can be very complicated. Another reason that assigning possible points can be complicated is that you can't just assign possible points to a test in Canvas, a quiz. The possible points in a quiz in Canvas is the sum of the possible points for each question in the test, and you can't override that. So when you're making tests and you're weighting assignments individually by the number of points possible for that assignment, you have to think, when you're writing individual test questions, you have to ask yourself, well, I have to weight each question appropriately within the test. And then the total possible points on that test has to add up to a certain value to make it worth the same amount, say, as another chapter test. And maybe they don't have the same number of questions or the same kinds of questions in them. You have to do all of this tinkering where you say, well, each one of these questions is going to have 0.67 points. It's going to be worth 0.67 points in order to make the total come out right. And that gets to be really, really ticky. I hate that. I hate having to think about all those possible points. I'd rather have something where, I said the quizzes are going to be worth 10% of the grade. I just want to tell Canvas, make all the quizzes 10% of the grade, or the average of all the quizzes, 10% of the grade. And Canvas has a way you can do that, but it involves a somewhat less conceptually simple process to set it up. It's not difficult, but it's just a little bit more complicated than just assigning a number of points, appropriate number of points to each assessment. Indeed, if you do it this other way, it doesn't matter how many points each assessment has, which sounds a little bit like magic, but it does work. How do we implement that? Well, to do that, we have to create what are called assignment groups. And so to show you that, I'm going to go back to the assignments tool in Canvas in this course. And I have chosen in this particular course to have 3 categories.
Dave, could you share your screen again?
We can't see it.
Oh my God, what happened?
I don't know.
My screen share was canceled. My God, I'm so sorry. I've been chattering along, assuming you could see what I was doing. I apologize. Oh, that's right. We had that hiccup a minute ago. Darn. Please let me know when something like that happens, because this is going to be incomprehensible otherwise. Sorry about that. All right, so here we're back at the assignments tool. Here I have 3 assignment groups that I have created. By default, when you get your Canvas shell, there's just one assignment group, and it's named assignments, plural, and every assessment that you create, every quiz, every homework assignment, every graded discussion goes into that one assignment group. And if you are weighting your individual assignments by points possible individually, it doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about assignment groups. You can just let everything sit in that one group. And the grade book and the different assessments in the grade book are weighted by the number of possible points each one has. But if you're going to do it this way, you need assignment groups. If you're going to weight by percentage of if you're going to weight different categories of assessments in the final grade computation by percentage, then you've got to have them divided into separate assignment groups. And I've gone for a fairly simplistic arrangement in this particular course, which is a simple course. I have all my homework assignments in one assignment group, all of my quizzes in another assignment group, which I call test, and my one gradable discussion in yet a third assignment group. Your rating or your assignment groups may be much more complex. You may have, for instance, like I said, weekly quizzes or something like that, or daily quizzes that constitute a relatively small amount of the grade. You might have chapter tests, final exam, homework assignments, maybe 2 or 3 different kinds of homework assignments, writing assignments versus something simpler. You may have several grade categories, but you can have as many assignment groups as you like by just adding groups using this button right here. You just give the group a name and save it. There's nothing to creating assignment groups. And assorting assessments among assignment groups is very simple. You just drag them up and down by using this movement tool here, the two columns of 4 dots. And you can just drag assessments from one assignment group to another. So it's very easy to assort them along that appropriately. But once I have my assignment groups set up, the process of setting up my grade computation becomes really super simple. A lot simpler than having to worry about how many points possible each assessment should have. Because what I can do is go to this unmarked menu in the upper right-hand corner of the assignments tool and select Assignment Groups Weight. This allows me to weight my final grade based not on individual assessments and their possible points, but based on assignment groups. If I click that, I see all of my assignment groups listed. And I obviously have done this before, so I've already got weights, percentage weights for each of those assignment groups selected. You would just type that in. Obviously, this needs to add up to 100%, but that's all you have to do to weight the different grade items in your course. Homework assignment is going to be worth half the grade, tests 40%, and that one gradable discussion, the class participation grade, basically will be 10%. That adds up to 100. Now, Canvas will do all the arithmetic for you. And it does it by computing everything as percentages. Rather than using the individual number of points earned by each student for each assessment in the grade book, Canvas will compute a percentage for each assessment. It will take the number of possible points for that assessment, divide it into the number of points earned by the student, multiply by 100, get a percentage. It will then use that percentage in future weighted average computations using formulas that you don't have to generate or even understand if you trust Canvas. Canvas will then do all the arithmetic for you and will report your final total, the student's final total, as a percentage. If you are doing things this way, you cannot have your final total reported as points. That's no longer an option. It has to be percentages. But this way, when you're creating assessments, you don't have to worry about how many points possible the assessment represents, because that's taken out of the grade computation process. It can be any number of possible points. You can make everything worth 100 points to make your grading easier when you're assigning partial credit. Or you can have tests just add up to how many points they add up to based upon the number of points you decided were appropriate for each question within the test. So the process of setting up your assessments just gets a lot simpler. And all you have to do is think ahead and say, oh, well, how many grade categories do I want and how much weight do I want to apply to each one? And which assessments should be in which category? And that's something you've probably done anyway. When you typed out your syllabus, you probably went through that process. In any case, that's another option for grade computation. Conceptually more complex. In practice, takes a lot less time generally to set up. There's one other advantage to having assignment groups, which I'll show you. And you can use this whether or not, no matter how you weight your final grades, whether you use the the assignment group weights or not. If you have your assignments segregated into different assignment groups, you can, if you go to the name of the assignment group and go over to the right, there's a context menu, kind of like an action link in Blackboard, if you remember those, that you can click on. And there is an option to edit that assignment group. And if you select that option, one of the things you can do is change the name of the assignment group. You can also change its weight if you have set assignment group weights. But down below that, this gives you the option to drop the lowest grade or grades in a group of assessments. Let's say you have a whole slew, like 16 weekly quizzes, and you tell the students, well, you can't make those up, but I'll drop the lowest grade. So if you miss one, you get a free pass. You can drop any number of lowest scores if you want. 1 is most common, but you can drop the lowest 2 or whatever if you have a lot of them. You can also drop the highest ones, which is based on grading theory. We should remove both outliers, the lowest and the highest, to get a really accurate measure of the student's performance. If you decide to do that, let me know how that works out, will you? Assuming your students have not tracked you down and done you grievous bodily harm. I've never had the nerve to do that. Also, if you're dropping lowest grades, or highest grades for that matter, you can exclude, and there's an assignment in that assignment group that you don't want dropped, that everybody has to do. You can set that as an exception. It won't be dropped, even if that is the lowest grade. Somebody wanted that real bad. That didn't used to be in there. So that's how you drop the lowest grade in a series of grades within a particular assignment group. And then you just save the changes. I'm going to cancel out of that. So that's another reason for setting up your assignment groups and distributing your various assessments among them. Okay. And that pretty much covers what I wanted to say about the grade book and grade computation in Canvas. Let's see. I'm looking back at the chat tool here to see if there's anything vis-a-vis that. When I post a project or test using a PDF, it would be the best way to receive the student's work. Can a student work on it and take a picture and submit it? Sure. A lot of people do that. And your students almost all have those little cameras in their pockets. It could be a problem for a student who didn't have one of those, or some kind of scanner. But the vast majority of your students will have smartphones.
So hi, Dave.
Yes.
I'm the one who put up there, Helena. So if I upload it using PDF, and then students print out and work on the paper project, and they take a picture of it.
Yes. They
upload it as a PDF. So like a submission.
They can upload it as whatever file type you specify, though I'd give them some flexibility as long as it's something standard. JPEG, probably, yeah. If they take a picture of it with their phone, it's probably going to be a JPEG. But some scanner applications on phones will create PDFs as well. You just have to decide what you're going to accept.
So I would accept like a PDF and JPEG.
Whatever they can upload to you, as long as it's something you can open.
Then could I open it and then see it using the Speedgrader?
Yes, it will appear in the Speedgrader.
Oh, okay.
And you can see it there. But if let's say they uploaded some esoteric image format, like, what's the new one from Google Chrome? There's a new image format that I can't think of the name of right now, but it's something that sometimes is an option on Android phones now.
Mhm.
And it's something that Canvas can't open. So you may
So
have to
if I-
say,
uh,
no, I can't accept that one. You got to convert it to something else before you submit it. But that would be unusual,
Mhm.
to say
I
the
see.
least.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
that's a very good strategy.
But if I just say PDF, could they just take a picture and then change it to PDF and upload it?
Well, they can if they know how to do it and they have the software tools necessary to do it.
I see.
But those are big ifs.
It's okay. Okay, I see. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, I wouldn't depend on that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see how we could modify and upload the Excel version of the gradebook. That would be another Zoom session all by itself. But I'll take that into account, and I'll see if I can create a tutorial about that. How about that? Good question.
Thank you.
I want to see how to attach attendance to the grades for the end of the semester. We don't generally use the attendance tool in Canvas, so I'm not going to spend much time on that. I'll be happy to handle that offline. How do we delete students who have dropped? You don't. They should automatically disappear from your gradebook when they drop through an automated integration process with PeopleSoft. So you don't have to manage that. You also don't have to put them in when they enroll. They'll automatically appear in your gradebook and in your roster. Can you go over 100% for extra credit? Yes. Just because you say an assignment is worth, say, 10 points, doesn't mean you can't enter a grade of 12 or 15 for it or whatever. Canvas will take it and compute it happily.
You make that a
And-
group?
Pardon?
Extra credit? Can you make the extra credit a group in the
No,
assignment?
you
And
can
make-
just do it. Let's say you had a submission that deserved, that was exceptional and deserved extra credit, and the assignment was worth 10 points. When you're grading it, you could just enter 15.
But can I have an extra credit category or group where I add a
You
few points?
can
different
make
activities?
an assignment, an individual assignment, extra credit, and all you have to do there is set the points possible for the assignment to 0.
Okay.
That way, the points are added into the percentage computation for the student, but the denominator of the fraction, the total possible points, is not incremented, is not increased. So a student who submits that extra credit assignment gets extra points, gets the benefit, but a student who chooses not to submit that extra credit assignment is not penalized because their points possible are not larger than they would otherwise be. So the secret to making an assignment extra credit is simply to set the points possible for that assignment to 0. That does not stop you, again, from entering a non-zero grade in the gradebook.
Dave,
Yes.
what happens if you have that category set to drop lowest grade? Would it then be dropped? Do you need to work around that?
I'm sorry, I lost the last part of that.
What happens if you do an extra credit assignment and it's
Right.
Canvas is worth 0, and then you put it into one of the groups that say to drop the lowest grade? Will it drop it? So we have to make
You wouldn't want to do those two things together because
Okay,
that would be a conflict. Yeah. No, if you're going to put an extra credit assignment in there, you can't drop the lowest grade.
So you just create a different assignment group for that.
Right. You'd create a different assignment group for it.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Hey, Dave, I had a question.
Yes.
So I teach math, and so I have a lot of homework. And my plan was to do categories and have homework worth, say, 10%. And
Right.
what I wanted to do was, because this is what I've been doing up to this point, is I do a running total. So at week 2, there's a total number of points the homework is worth, and each student has a number thing. And then later on, I want to be able to adjust the number of points that the homework assignment could be, and also adjust how many points each individual student has. can I do that as a running total sort of thing throughout the semester?
Well, Canvas will automatically do a running total for you. And you can't tell it.
Once I've created the assignment and said homework is worth, that it has 15 points in it, I can later, after I put in scores, say, no, it's actually worth out of 30 points. And I can adjust.
You can always change any of those parameters, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Let's see. That's one I'm going to have to deal with a little later. Let's see. Probably won't have time to do that explanation of weighted scores again, because that's the single most time-consuming part of this. But remember, this is being recorded. You'll be able to go back and look at that again. Okay, and there's one I'll take after we finish. How can you record extra credit without it changing the total number of points? Set the possible points to 0 for the extra credit assignment. Is there Speedgrader? What is the Speedgrader and how does it work? We're about to see that. All right, now we're going to talk about how you grade in Canvas. And we're going to look at grading each type of assessment: a homework assignment, a test, quiz. All tests are quizzes to Canvas, and a graded discussion. We'll look at each one of those. To do that, I want a simpler grade book, so I'm going to go into a different course that is set up with a minimal number of assessments. If I go to my modules here in this course, I've set up, whoops, sorry, wrong shell. I could have sworn I had that one up here before. Sucker has moved it around. Oh, that's irritating. Let's see, grading in Canvas. I swear this one was right up at the beginning earlier. Canvas sometimes rearranges the dashboard when you're not expecting it. Okay, here's the course I wanted. It's a very simple course. It just has one module with 3 assessments in it. An assignment, as indicated by the little icon here, a quiz, and a graded discussion. We're going to look at each of these and see how they're graded. Let's start with a homework assignment, because that's the most complex in grading. And of course, the homework assignment is also the most authentic of all possible assessments. It tells you more about what your students really know and how much mastery they have of the subject. It's much more indicative of how well they're doing in the course. There is, of course, only one drawback to that. These types of assignments are much more time-consuming to grade than, say, an objective test, which Canvas grades for you. You don't have to do any grading at all. So it takes some more work, but it is by far the most authentic of assessments, and it's also the one that's the hardest to cheat on. Not impossible, but the hardest. And you're much more likely to catch it if somebody does try, particularly given that you have unit check available, a plagiarism checker. So homework assignments are the very best type of assessment to use in an online course. So let's talk about how you can at least make the grading process as efficient as possible. Let's just take a quick look at this assessment to see what it is. I click on the link to it. I go to my view of the assessment, which is basically just some instructions where I'm asking them to define a term called screencasting, which is something we're doing right now. I'm doing right this minute. I'm recording my computer screen using Zoom, and I'm talking about it. That's screencasting. but I've also asked them to include 3 instructional applications of screencasting and listing 2 software tools that can be used to create screencasts. So an assignment is just an instruction. I've set a certain number of points possible, and I've set this to be submitted with a file upload. So the student has to create a file and then upload that file to a Dropbox associated with the assignment. Fine. So how does that work? Well, let's go to the gradebook and take a look. This is a simple gradebook because I've only got 3 assessments, but everything we need is there. Here's my 3 assessments. Here's my single assignment group. I have just weighted these by individually, by possible points. I haven't set up assignment groups here, or multiple assignment groups. So I have 1 assignment group and a total column in the 3 grade columns. Simplest grade book you'll ever see in Canvas. And the students have been busy in this course. I can tell that by these symbols here. These symbols indicate that a submission has been made by each of these students and that it's awaiting grading. Apparently, none of these were things that Canvas could grade itself. The quiz would have been a good possibility there. If a quiz, a test, a final, Canvas calls everything from a pop test to a final exam a quiz. A quiz in Canvas that includes only objective questions that Canvas can grade would just have a grade show up in the gradebook automatically, immediately upon submission. The student submits the test and bang, their grade's in the gradebook. That's cool. Apparently there's something about this quiz that's preventing that from working, and we'll see what it is in a minute. But right now we're focusing on the homework assignment. So here's that homework assignment, and I have 3 submissions for it. How do I grade those? Well, I grade it by clicking on the little icon in the gradebook, and I get the option to just enter a grade. Hey, that would quickly solve things, right? I just, do my Karnak imitation and say, I can feel that student got a 6 on that assignment. Just type it in. Nah, we're not going to do that. I see that I have a possibility of 10 points there. So how am I going to know what to provide what grade to provide? Well, obviously I need to see the submission. I can do that by clicking on this little right arrow here that appears once I click on the submission icon. And a little panel jumps in from the left, and I see who this is. On the internet, nobody knows if you're a dog. Here I have another option to just enter a grade right off the bat. If that grade were like 0 because the assignment were late, or I know that there's some reason this student should get a 0, I could just type it in right here, but probably not. Probably I'm going to have to go to the grading interface in Canvas, which is called the Speedgrader. For those of you who are familiar with Blackboard, the good news is that this is almost identical to the inline grading interface in Blackboard, because both Blackboard and Canvas use the same third-party tool that they license from someone else to allow you to grade in the gradebook. So this is the Speedgrader. I've got a bunch of tools here. This icon will take me back to the gradebook. This icon lets me hide the grades temporarily if I like. I can set options and so on. There's really nothing much you're gonna need to do there. I can see that of these, that I have 4 submissions for this assignment, and I've graded none of them. And that this is submission 1 of 4. It's the first one encountered in the gradebook. And I can see who submitted it. I also have arrows here where I can go, once I grade one of these, I can go to the next one without having to go back to the grade book. I can just move forward and take test 2 students submission. I can go back and forth that way. This is the most efficient way to use the Speedgrader, is to grade down a column rather than across a row in the grade book, in effect. Okay, so here I see, on the left, I see the student's submission. Usually that's what you will see. Assuming they have submitted this, they've uploaded a file to fulfill this assignment. And as long as that file is in the right format, as you specify, usually in the instructions for the assignment, Canvas will be able to display it. If you just get an indication here that Canvas can't display the file because it's some esoteric file type, like I don't know, an AutoCAD drawing or something like that, that Canvas can't display, you can always download the file to your local, I'm sorry, right here is where you want to download the file. You can download the file to your local computer, and presumably you have an application on your local computer that will open up the file. You can look at it there, and then you can come back here and assign a grade. But hopefully, in most cases, the student's submission will appear here in the display pane of the Speedgrader, and you can look at it, read it, and evaluate it. You can also do things like you can do with a piece of paper and a blue pencil when you're grading a writing assignment. You have these little annotation tools up here that can be used to mark up the student's paper and give comments based on those markups. Like you can use a point annotation, which allows you to stick a comment anywhere into the submission, like maybe right here. Just click, and we get a comment over here. Are you old enough to remember when this wasn't the case? I am. Obviously, that's not especially informative, but you can do, I can, and then just hit enter, and that comment becomes a part of the grading record. The student can see it later, as can you. There's a highlighter annotation. I can highlight HD and click on this little icon and make a comment. Do you see? What resolution must a picture have to be considered high definition? Which is, of course, what HD means. And the answer is, what I should say, what minimum resolution? The answer to that is 720p. 1280 by, or 1080, no, 1280 by 720. So, you know, you can mark this up. You can type just general messages by selecting the text annotation tool and click anywhere in the document. Type, this is great. Trying to be positive. And they'll see that annotation. I accidentally put another one in just about. If they've used a word incorrectly, you can do strike through. Let's see. there's really nothing in here that's worthy of being struck through, but like if I wanted them to use, rather than the word screenshot, I wanted them to use the word screen capture, or the phrase screen capture. I can do that, and they see a strike through. I can draw freehand and circle things and write a comment about that paragraph. Oof. Oops. And finally, I can also draw, instead of drawing freehand, I can draw rectangles around things and leave a comment. These markup tools are available only if the student submits certain types of files, notably Word documents, PDFs, open office documents, ODF files, a free Office suite that students can use in lieu of Microsoft Office. And there are a few other options.
So not Google
Word
documents.
Pardon?
So not Google
Nope.
documents. A lot of them do.
Not, unfortunately not. So you can set file submission requirements accordingly. If you want to be able to do this sort of thing, you can say, okay, you got to submit it as a Word document. And no matter what word processor or text editor that students use to create a document, it almost certainly has an option to save the document as a Word document, even if it's not Microsoft Word. You can do that in Google Docs. For instance, you can download the document as a Word document and submit it. So to have this capability, you do have to do some groundwork initially and ensure that the students submit something that you can mark up in this way, if that's important enough to you to set that requirement. You can also do things like full screen, which I don't want to do right now while I'm in Zoom. That can cause some challenges. Or you can zoom in so that you can see if they've used a very small font or something, you can see it. That's more important for us than it is for them, especially when you get to my age. So those are your annotation tools, because feedback is just so important. Let's face it, you know that, how students crave feedback. And that's especially true in online courses. They can become very, very, very fond of feedback because it's one of the few times they get really personal contact from you. So this is incredibly important. The providing feedback is incredibly important when you're grading assignments like this. And students will really appreciate it. Those of you who are going through the online faculty certification program or have already completed it will probably feel that. That may be one of the best outcomes of that training course, is that it impresses on you how good it feels to get that positive feedback from your instructors. Or how useful it is to get feedback that is a little less positive, because it allows you to go back and correct things. So it's wonderful to be able to give feedback. And this is one way you can give feedback in the Speedgrader, by no means the only way. You can also add comments. You can type them in. Great work overall. And submit the comment after you've provided a grade. I'm not going to provide a grade just yet. I have a reason for that. You also have the option to upload a file with feedback in it, to attach a file to this assignment, grading, that the student can open up in their grades tool. This might be a screencast that you've created in Zoom or Snagit or Screencast-O-Matic, or the new, oh, I don't want to take much time with this, but TechSmith, the company that makes Camtasia and Snagit, basically the company that produces the most functional screencasting tools of all, used to have, or still does, a free tool called Jing, which some of you may have used over the years. But Jing has, and you could use Jing to bring up the student's paper on your computer screen and mark it up and talk about it and so on, and provide them with personalized feedback of the nature in such a way that it's almost like being there. The student coming into your office and you going over their paper together is an incredibly powerful feedback technique. But the tools that to do that, while they're pretty simple and not generally very expensive, Jing was great because it was totally free and it was really brutally simple to use. But it's become less and less useful over the years because it produced what are called Flash videos. And Adobe is just about to kill off Flash forever, or the Flash format forever, because it's been a security headache for years. And it's no longer used hardly at all, except by Jing. So Jing was about to go bye-bye. So TechSmith announced today a replacement for Jing that is completely free, like Jing was, and which, by the way, Screencast-O-Matic is not, if you want to record for more than 15 minutes. It is completely free. It allows you to record videos apparently of any length, and you can take screenshots with it. You can record videos. It's like a a somewhat limited version of their Snagit tool, and the interface even looks the same. And it's, as of today, available totally free. I'm working on the tutorials right now for that. I'll just mention that. So you could use TechSmith Capture, it's called, to pull this, to record your screen, pull the student's paper up on the screen, and talk about it and highlight it. You could do it right in the Speedgrader.
Dave,
then attach that file. Mm-hmm.
What is the name of the replacement for Jing?
TechSmith Capture.
Okay.
You can also provide feedback, audio and video feedback, right from within Canvas with no other tool. You can't do screencasting. You can't show the screen and talk about it, but you can do a talking head comment by clicking on this little icon here. My primary webcam here is in use by Zoom, so it can't be used for this, but I do have another option, which is my document camera over here, which I can just point around at me. And I need to be sure that Canvas is hearing me. And that's what this little bouncing blue bar indicates. If you don't see that working, you can click on the mic symbol here and select the appropriate microphone, one that's working. This one apparently is working, so that's fine. And then I just start recording.
Can this be done from the phone as well?
No.
Thanks.
Unfortunately not. There you'd have to, if you wanted to do this from your phone, you would have to upload the video to YouTube or something like that, or download the video as a file and attach it to the feedback. This is a lot simpler.
Browser?
But it has to be done from the computer.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Nice thought. I know that's true with a phone. I'm not actually certain whether you can do this on an iPad or not. I haven't had one for years. So, and there are some things you can do on an iPad you can't do on a phone. So I won't categorically state that's impossible, but I don't think it's possible. Well, I've been nattering on here, and the students able to see me. If I look into the camera, I can make eye contact with them and emphasize what I'm saying with that nonverbal communication. That's 70% of communication. And
Dave,
then when I'm done, yes.
Is there concerns that you're going to run out of storage space if you do this regularly?
Nah. This doesn't count against your storage space. So you can click finish when you're done. You can play it back to be recorded. No, unfortunately not. There you'd have the lip sync issues there are a function of this camera I'm using and not the tool itself. This camera is designed for showing still images as a document camera, not as a full motion camera. So it doesn't do that as well, but it will look fine and sound fine. When you're done and you're satisfied with it, you click save. You do have an option to start over if you decide it's fouled up beyond all recognition. So you just click save, and depending on how long you spoke, it'll take anywhere from a few seconds to a minute or so for that to take. There it goes. And it's embedded right there. And the student, you can play it back here. Oh, it's not quite ready yet, so it takes a few minutes for it to become available. But no, as far as I know, this doesn't count against your file storage allocation in Canvas. It goes into another pot.
Did you say you could or could not see their document at the same time?
You cannot using this tool.
Okay, so like when you're talking,
if you wanted to see their documents, you need to use a true screencasting tool, like for instance, Zoom, which you have for free. But it's a little bit more of a lengthy process because you have to save the file and then upload it as an attachment.
Okay.
But it's worth it. And the other thing you can do for adding comments in the Speedgrader, if you are using Google Chrome as your web browser, is this. Not bad, exclamation point. The definition is excellent, and the applications are well represented, period. However, comma, I don't see any mention of tools necessary to create screencasts, period. Then I hit stop, and that appears here. If the recognition, voice recognition has not been perfect, you can edit it. So usually it's pretty good, as you saw. It's usually perfect. And then you just submit that. And that becomes one of your comments. So that can really speed up the process of giving feedback. And again, the only stipulation there is that you use Chrome as your web browser, because that uses a Chrome extension to do that, which is integrated with Canvas. This is the only place in Canvas where you can use that, unfortunately.
Is there an option of doing a voice recording instead of having it go voice to text?
Yeah, you can do that using this tool, the media comment tool, and you can, let's see.
Thank you.
You can just turn off your webcam. You say no
Okay.
webcam. I don't know why it's, I guess it's only going to let me do that once here. But you just turn off your webcam and you just make it audio.
Okay, super, thanks.
You bet. And before somebody asks, no, there's no way to caption that. Well, there's no practical way to caption that video. So you can't use that video feedback tool with a student you know is hearing impaired for obvious reasons. There you stick with the text tools. So that's all. And let's say I've decided that that's worth about 8 points. Then I just submit. The grade goes into the grade book. Go back to the grade book, and it should be sitting there. Bingo. And then I just keep going, rinse and repeat. I came up with that 8 just, on the fly. What can I do to make that process of awarding partial credit a little bit more systematic and a little bit more consistent? I can create what's called a rubric, which is basically a grading roadmap that specifies exactly what you're looking for and how much each criterion that you're using to determine that grade is worth. You can create rubrics for homework assignments, for essay questions and tests, and for graded discussions. But I'm going to show creating one for this homework assignment. On the screen, on the assignment definition page, or the assignment homepage, there's a button to add a rubric. If you click on that, you get a rubric tool. A rubric is essentially a table where each row represents a grading criterion of some sort, something you're looking for in the student's answer. And each column represents a level of a level of satisfaction of that criterion, like full credit, half credit, no credit, whatever. To create the rubric in Canvas, of course, you have to have thought out how you're going to grade that question before you start. Assuming we've done that, I phrase this question to make the rubric as easy to create as possible. So that's something to think about when you're formulating your instructions for your assignments. I've got 3 basic parts to this question. Define the term screencasting. Include 3 instructional applications as the second part, and then list 2 software tools as the third part. So those are my criteria: definition, applications, software tools. Canvas gives me my first row, my first criterion, but it's generic. So I have to edit the criterion. I do that by clicking on the little pencil icon associated with the criterion. And this is going to be the screencasting definition. And I can type a longer description for myself if I like. Okay, so that's my first row. Now, what are my levels of partial credit going to be? Those are called ratings by Canvas, and I have 2 by default: full credit and no credit. But I can do, maybe I can go in between there. I could say for full credit, might be complete definition. And since the assignment as a whole is worth 10 points, I might decide that this is worth 5 points, half of that. It's the lion's share of the credit. But I could put any number of points here. And Canvas kind of assumed 5, and I'll accept that. So this criterion is worth 5 points out of 10. And full credit would be 5 points. What if they, on the other hand, the definition's incorrect? Well, I can edit this other rating and say incorrect definition. And that would be 0 points. But what if something in between those? I can add a rating by clicking on this blue plus here. I might call this partially correct. Definition. And the whole thing is going to be worth 3 points, or 5 points rather. So how much would this be worth? Maybe I'm going to give half credit, 2.5, and update that. So now I have a criterion and 3 ratings. And that criterion is worth as a whole 5 points, half the credit of half the value of it. But I had 2 other criteria. I can add another criterion by clicking here and make it a new criterion. And this is applications, create criterion. Okay, well, I've asked for 3. And I have 5 points left here, so maybe how about I make this 3 points total? And full marks will be 3 correct applications. I can edit that. And make that worth 3 points. Then I can add another one and make it 2 correct. Make that 2 points. And I can add one more, make that 1 correct. Make that 1 point. And leave no marks. For no marks, this is no correct applications. So here I've got 4 possible ratings where I only had 3 in the first criterion. That's fine. You don't have to have the same number of ratings for each criterion. All right, now I've got one more criterion, the new criterion. This will be tools, software tools. And full marks would be 2 tools, right? 2 correct tools. And that's not going to be 5 points because the whole thing, I've only got 2 points left. So 2 correct tools gets 2 points. And then 1 correct tool gets 1 point. And no correct tools gets 0 points. And everything adds up to 10 points, which is what it's supposed to up here. So I've got a rubric. I can remove points from the rubric if I just want the students to see the criteria, but not the points assigned. I don't know why I'd do that. I will have to use this rubric for assignment grading if it's going to be any good, so I need to check that. And once I do that, I just create rubric. That rubric is now displayed to the students when they go to submit the assignment, so they know what you expect. That improves performance all by itself there. They're not wondering what you really want. Also, when you go to grade this, this makes your grading so quick. For instance, if I go back to the grade book and I had another submission for a test 3 student, for instance, let's grade this one and use the rubric. Same thing, I click on the submission icon. I click on the right arrow, go to the Speedgrader. And now I've got an option to view the rubric. I click on that. I see my rubric and my ratings. And I can grade this sucker. And if I look here, I see that this is that same submission. If I saw this, I'd immediately be thinking about ripping somebody a new one for submitting the same submission as somebody else, but I can get away with that here. So the definition is excellent, so I'll give 5 points for that. They're just clicking that square on the rubric. And there are at least 3 applications. As a matter of fact, I gave 4. So that's full credit for that criterion. But I don't see any mention of software tools here. So that's a big 0 for that. And I don't even have to add the thing up. It adds it up for me. And if you have a more complex rubric, that's a big help. And I save that. And so that constitutes 8 points. And I didn't even have to enter that. And the student can see, and I can see later, why they got that grade by just looking at what was selected out of the rubric. So this is feedback in and of itself, and the student will be able to see this. And your grading can be bang, 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 click, 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 and that's all you have to do to grade. You don't even have to add the points up in your head. And there's no opportunity to make an error doing that, which was my favorite trick. And have the student say, why did I get a 5 on that? I added up, I get a 7, you know, which is embarrassing to say the least. So a rubric not only speeds up your grading, but it makes it more consistent. It takes some time to create the rubric and to think your way through it, but you will save far more, especially in an average size class of 30 to 40 people. You'll save a lot more time in the long run than you ever spend creating the rubric, and you can use the same rubric from term to term if you use the same assignment. So it's a terrific thing to do. And then I just submit that, and it goes into the grade book. Yes?
You said that the students see the rubric before they turn in the assignment?
Yes.
Where?
They see it when they go to the assignment to begin submitting it. The rubric will be visible there.
Okay.
All right. Let's go back to the grade book real quick. We're just about out of time here. So that's grading assignments. Grading tests is usually much simpler because the tests are usually graded for you, or the bulk of them are. These were not graded for you. So apparently there's some question in there that Canvas can't grade. Probably an essay question, or maybe a file upload question. And to grade that, you click on the assignment submission link. You can see that the student at this point has a 1.5, apparently on objective questions, but the bulk of the grade is not yet accounted for. You can click the right arrow, go to the Speedgrader, and this is how you see a student's test submission, whether you need to grade it or not. You can always pull the student's test submission up this way. And you see that the student got question 1 right, and question 3 half right. It was a multiple fill in the blank type thing, so they got half of it right. That's all been graded for you. The essay question, on the other hand, Canvas can't grade, but you can read this. You can assign comments. You don't have the markup tools here, but you can put specific question comments in. And you can provide a grade. In this case, that's correct. So I'm going to give that 10 points just by typing it into the grade box there. And then I'm going to remember to update the score, excuse me. Now the student has an 11.5 out of 12. If I can give general comments the same way I could with an assignment, then I can submit that, and that grade goes into the grade book. And there it is. Finally, the graded discussion. When these icons here indicate that the student has participated in this discussion. And you can see their posts by clicking on the submission icon, bringing up the Speedgrader in the same way. And the Speedgrader will go and pull out the posts that that student made in this discussion topic, and you can read them. You can have a rubric here if you like, or you can just look at that and say, well, that looks like that met all criteria. These are 3 correct things that you could do with screencasting. And the student also replied to another student that met the criteria for this. So I just give them 10 and submit. If I need to, I can view the full discussion and see the posts in context without having to leave the Speedgrader, he said.
Dave, is there a trick for setting it up so that you can grade it?
I was wondering the same thing about that. Like, if we could walk through how to set up a discussion, and that would be graded.
Yeah, I will be happy to do that when we get done. And actually, any discussion can be graded or not. And there's nothing in particular you have to do to set it up to be graded. You just say, grade, I want this to have a grade, and you look at the student's participation and you decide, that looks fine. That met all that they did what I asked them to, or they didn't. And maybe they almost did, or you just kind of have to award partial credit on your own gestalt of what they've written. Or you can create a rubric very similar to what we did for the assignment and say, you know, this, I'm looking for this, and this is worth this much, that's worth that much, and so on.
During the past semester, I set them up, but I must have missed the way to have it graded.
Make it gradable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I will definitely I will show you that here in just a second.
Thank you.
That'll be the first question I answer, because that's very closely related to what we're talking about in grading here. And the bad thing is, once students start submitting to a discussion forum, you can't turn it from non-gradable to gradable. So you get one chance to do that, to set a discussion forum to be graded.
That's helpful.
Well, there actually is a workaround. What you can do, remember I showed you how to create a grade column manually?
Yeah.
You could create a grade column for that discussion manually. And then you wouldn't have the Speedgrader. You'd have to just look through the discussion for that student. But you can search for particular students in the discussion, the live discussion display, and you can pull out their posts and you can look at them and say, well, that's worth 5 points or whatever. And then you can manually enter the grade into the grade book. So you could work around it. The grading process would take conservatively at least 30% longer, maybe twice, between 30 and 50% longer that way, rather than having the Speedgrader and all that, but you could still do it. So it's really worth your time to know how to make that discussion gradable. So let's talk about that. That's the first question, because I'm done at this point. That's the end of the formal, such as it was and what there was of it, formal presentation. Not that it was all that formal. And now we're in question mode, and that's a very good question and very closely related to what we're talking about. So I'm going to take that one first. How do you make a discussion gradable? How do you set it up so that you can do this sort of thing that we just saw with it? Oh, and by the way, note that I have that the Canvas is faithfully doing running totals here. This student got 8 out of 10 on the only assignment they've submitted, and their running total is 80%, just as you'd expect. So Okay. Let's go back and let's create a discussion in this course. This is a sandbox. I can do anything I want. You can create discussions either from the discussions tool in the course menu by clicking add discussion here, or you can create them from within a module by going to the add item button at the top of the module and selecting discussion as the item to create. Either one works. In this case, I just say this is a new topic. And I'll call it, I'm just going to call it sample discussion. I have a real problem with dragging on the shift key, sorry. My mother told me to learn how to type. And then we just add the item to the module, and that creates the discussion and names it. But it's a blank discussion. There's a shell of a discussion. So we click on the name of what we've just created, and we go to the page, your page for the discussion, and there's an edit button. So this is where we make decisions like, is this going to be gradable or not? If I click edit, I'll need to write a prompt for the students to reply to in the discussion, to guide the discussion. About, I don't know, something. Whatever. Okay. I can attach files with more information if I need to. But here are the critical options that you have to check. And some of these you can only check, you can't change your mind after students start to post on some of these. Like, I don't know why you'd ever not allow threaded replies. This groups posts that are related to one another together so that you can follow a discussion asynchronously. I don't know why you'd ever not have this threaded. Maybe if you just wanted something like a blog, you wouldn't check that. Another good option is to make users make their first post before they can see everybody else's posts. That way you don't get minor variations on things that have come before. Often enough, copy, paste, change a word or two, and move on. So this prevents that. People have to put at least one original thought in before they start copying other people's. I'm not going to worry about podcast feeds, but here is how you make it gradable. You have to check this option. And you got to do it before any students post to this, because you can't check that later. Ask me how I found that out. Oops. You can also allow liking. This ain't Facebook, is my answer to that. So those are two that you'd almost always check if you wanted a graded discussion. Some discussions don't need to be graded. Like if a common discussion forum is a question and answer forum, where you give students the right to post questions in the forum that you pick off later in your own time, and that other students can see, so that maybe one of their peers can answer. So it's kind of a little help discussion that students can help themselves, and you can step in when necessary. And those don't need to be graded. But often enough, you will want a class discussion grade, and LMS discussions like this are a wonderful, consistent way to do that, rather than you just trying to remember, well, Johnny, was talking all the time in class, or Johnny sat on his hands and never said a thing in class. So you don't have to remember those things. You'll have documentary evidence of class participation in discussions in a discussion topic. and you'll be able to look at it. If you make it gradable, you'll be able to look at that in the Speedgrader and see exactly what they've done. So you can assign grades very consistently and rationally. Once you have selected these options, then you have some other things. If you set grading, you have to assign a points possible. If you're weighting your grades by individual assessment, you have to think a lot about how many points that should be. If you're weighting your grades by assignment group, you can make this anything. You can make it 100 points and just make grading easy. You can display just like with assignments, you can display the grade as percentages, complete, check, check, no check, points, a letter grade, GPA scale. Oh my God, I forgot. I forgot letter grade schemes. Oh no, we got to do that. I'll do that in just a second. And it'll be in the recording. You can put it in an assignment group if necessary. You can assign it by default to everyone. You can set due dates, availability dates, and so on, and save. So that's how you create a discussion, and that's how you make it gradable. And when you save it, if it's gradable, a column for it will automatically appear in the gradebook. And there it is. I just haven't published it yet. Yes, question.
Sorry, I thought there was a completion or incomplete complete or incomplete option. Is that true?
I'm sorry?
I thought there was the option to have it be graded based on completion.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That was one of the options.
Oh, I missed. I guess, could you just tell me?
Sorry about that. Let me edit that one.
I missed it somehow because then I tried that as a PDF upload before I actually asked them to do that for a test. Mm-hmm. And then I couldn't figure out how it was working in the gradebook. Oh, complete and complete. Okay. Yeah, so then what would we select after that? So if you did complete and complete.
I'm sorry now?
I thought I had to choose something else after that.
No.
This is becoming more of an individual question, so I'll just take it. Thank you.
Nope, you just pick that. Okay. And then rather than applying a numeric grade, you just, it's just a check mark or an X.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Now, let's say you want letter grades. You can have Canvas do that for you. But you have to set up a letter grading scheme in your course. You do that by going to your settings menu. And about halfway down in the course details under settings is an option for grading scheme. You can enable a course grading scheme. By grading scheme, it means what letters do you want and what grades do you want to award and where are the cutoffs percentage-wise. If you check that, then you have to set a grading scheme. This is the default scheme. You probably don't want that. We don't use pluses and minuses. So I can select another scheme. And we have a standard scheme, which is ABCDF, where the cutoffs are 90%, 80%, 70, 60, and 60. If you want that, you just say use this grading standard. If you want to roll your own, if you have different cutoffs, which are perfectly, it's perfectly your right to do, you can manage grading schemes and you can add a grading scheme. We only have one that's stored for the entire system, that standard one. But you can add your own grading scheme, and then you can remove pluses and minuses if you so desire, just by clicking on X's there at the end of the line. You can set your own cutoffs. Let's say an A for you has to be 92%. You're a hard grader. And maybe a B has to be 88. You can set these things for yourself.
Hey, Dave?
Yes.
I don't normally round. Do you know how these round?
Anything, if your cutoff is set to 92% and the student gets 91.9%, they'll get a B.
And 91.99?
Yep.
Okay, that's how I do it.
Anything below that. So
Okay.
you might want to set this to
1% lower.
89.9, yeah, or something like that. Or 1 point lower, exactly. But then what about the guy who gets 88? You know, it's an endless decision. And then you save this, and that becomes your grading scheme. When you enable that grading scheme and you go to the grade book, you'll see, he said, oh, darn, I didn't save that change. I do that every time. Sorry. Let's go back to settings. And let's enable that. Yeah, that didn't take. So enable that, set a grading scheme. I'm going to use the standard scheme. And I'm going to click use this grading standard. And then click done. And then that's all I have to. Oh, and then I'll update course details, which is what I didn't do before. Now, if I go to the grade book, when I go to the total column in the grade book, not only do I see a percentage grade, but I also see a letter grade. You can also display other grades as letter grades if you prefer. You can even enter grades as letter grades. So if you have a grading scheme set up. Okay, sorry, I forgot to do that earlier. And that's in the recording, so everybody will have that. Now let me take some other questions.
All right, Dave?
Yes.
All right, I wrote 2 in the chat tool, but I'll just combine the 2 of them.
Great.
Okay, so one of them was when you were talking about the inputting the students through the grade book, where you could, in the grade book, you can send a message to the students. But where is that saved? Because I've sent messages to students. Some of them said they received and some didn't, but I can't find where I have a copy of that. Whereas if I go in the inbox, I can make a message. But when I do it through the grade book, I can't see where I've saved.
Yeah, I don't think it saves that messaging in your sent folder. So the answer is you just have to jot down that you did that. I don't think it saves that. Let's try it. Let's say I want to message everybody.
We didn't do it, for instance.
Yeah, who haven't submitted this yet. And or no, let's do who scored less than what is it?
50%?
Yeah, well, I've only got 2, let's say less than 9. That's test student 1 and test student 3. Both scored less than 9. Okay. Scored less than 9 on screen casting definition. Not bad, but you can do better.
Okay.
Okay. And send message. Message sent. Now let me go to my inbox tool and see if that's in the sent messages. I'm not at all certain it is. I can go from my inbox to my sent. Ah, I'm wrong.
It is in the sent.
It does store it in your sent messages. Ah, very good.
Okay. And my
yes.
Other question is when you were talking about creating the different columns.
Yes.
And like, for instance, assignments, but I also have, there's a column that shows up, which is the imported assignments.
Yes.
Like, for instance, I make something in one class and I just copy it into the other one. And that shows a column by itself in the grade book. And, and let's say I do it in class 1 and I just import it all to class 2. But then.
So how do you get rid of that?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. Let's, in this course, let's import an assignment from another course to show how that works and what you can do about it.
Okay. Because the students averaging their grade, they think, oh, I'm doing so well.
Yeah, no, you don't want that in there. You don't want that imported assignments grade or assignment category. And it's easy to get rid of. Let's say I'm going to import an assignment into this course. I do that by going to the settings page, and I do import course content in the task menu here on the right. And if I'm going to import it from another one of my courses on this system, I just say copy a Canvas course. I do have to say what course I want to import from, and I have to search for it by typing some part of the course name. And select the course from which I'm going to copy this assignment. And rather than, and if I don't want everything from that course, but just one or more assignments, I say copy selected content, select specific content, and then I click import. This gives me a job line here, and it gives me a button that allows me to select the content that I want to copy from that other course. So I click that button, and it shows me every type of content there is in Canvas. And content here includes assessments, course content, discussions, everything, announcements, even rubrics. I can copy rubrics from one course to another. But in this case, I want to copy an assignment. And let's say I wanted to, it's a homework assignment I want to copy. And I'll copy this one, this in-class writing assignment. And select that, when I click then select the select content button, the copy runs. Takes, usually, if you're copying a single assignment, should only take seconds. It's completed, everything looks good. If I go to the assignments tool now, which is where all assignments are listed, it's here, but it appears in an assignment group called imported assignments to remind you that you copied that from somewhere else. But this is in fact a homework assignment. So if I'm going to use it, I'm probably going to drag it up into my assignments, my assignment.
Oh, okay.
And put it in there. And then this becomes, the imported assignment group becomes empty. If I leave it there and I go to the gradebook, it's going to show up as a column in my gradebook because each of the assignment groups shows up, and you get a sub average or a subtotal of each assignment group. So the student can see, well, they're doing great on, they're doing okay on tests, better on homework assignments, not quite as good on discussions, and so on. It's just more information for the student and for you. But here's that imported assignments column you're talking about that's just sitting there confusing the students. How do I get rid of that? Well, I go back, having pulled everything out of it, I go back to the assignments tool and I pull the imported assignment out. And now I just go to the context menu for that assignment group and I delete it.
Okay.
And boom, it's gone. And now when I go to the gradebook, it's no longer there.
Dave, was there an option just to unpublish it?
No. If it exists, it will appear. There's no way to hide it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
You got to delete it.
Thank you. I forgot along with where does the email go in terms of communicating with students through the gradebook. When you, I teach a speech class, and 75% of their speech grade is based on their delivery, visuals, and everything, and
Right.
25% on their outline. If a student submits the outline, that's easy. I can just put all the grade there. But sometimes they do the speech, but they don't turn in the outline. And so I thought you were going to mention when you said you weren't going to put a grade for in the discussion or something in the grade book, and you're going to show what would happen. And I found out that I can't communicate in the grade book there unless I put some kind of, I can't send a message to a student unless I put some kind of grade there. So usually I'll put a 0 if they pay attention and then send the message. But I was thinking if I use the rubric, if a student doesn't submit an outline, is there a way that you can still use the rubric if it's not a submission? They haven't submitted something? Like
no, if they haven't submitted something, the rubric really won't come into play.
So how would so there's no way.
You need to have them submit something. It may be something trivial, like here's my submission or something like that, so that you can then use the Speedgrader and use the tools like that.
Okay, but there's no way I can use a rubric to grade like their speech itself. Like, you know how sometimes you can give a grade.
Well, yeah, you can just have them submit something and then use the rubric in the Speedgrader. And if they're, even if they don't submit a recording of their speech or whatever, which they probably wouldn't, you could still have them submit something minimal.
Okay.
It could be literally as little as just, I presented my speech on such and such a date. Type it in. And then you'd have something that they submitted, and you'd be able to use the Speedgrader and the rubric on that.
Okay, so in other words, if, like I said, you'd be surprised how many do the speech, but they don't turn in an outline. So
oh, sure, yeah.
Rubric, unless students, I mean, can you do a rubric without them submitting something? Like, for instance, they can grade it on things. So rubrics are all things students have submitted.
Right. So they have to submit something. And if they don't submit something they're supposed to, a deduction, you just have to do it. You just have to do it by gestalt and say, well, so-and-so didn't submit anything, so I don't have any way to provide the rubric for feedback. I just have to assign them a grade.
Okay.
You can assign a grade without having a submission.
Which I've done, but I was thinking of using a rubric that would help a lot with.
You can't really use the rubric unless they've submitted something.
Okay, so rubrics are only for things students have submitted. It can't be text or PDF or something.
You can't. I don't think you can use the rubric in a submission or in a situation where the student hasn't submitted something. But let's make sure I'm right about that. Like here. Where's my?
In the grade book, it says you can do a no submission and put a grade, but I couldn't figure out how to use the rubric there.
Right. You wouldn't want to do that because normally they're going to submit something, and no submission will give them no drop box to submit to. So you can't do that. But let's see. I'm in the wrong course here, aren't I? How did that happen?
Even a dance teacher doesn't. The students have to dance.
Yeah, it keeps moving it around. There it is. Let's look at the grade book here. Let me make sure I'm right about this. Like here's the test 4 student had no submission for this. Yet I do have a rubric for it. So let's click there, go to the Speedgrader. Doesn't have a submission.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look. I can still pull up the rubric.
Oh, okay.
Huh. I'm surprised. Okay, so you could still grade this by.
Let's say they did something visual in person. Just give a couple and then see that. Does it still work?
Yeah, you'd have to remember their presentation in order to use this, of course. But you're going to have to do that to give them a grade anyway. So.
And does it add it up still? Yeah.
And it adds it up.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Good question.
So
I learned something.
Create one. Because like I use rubrics sort of. Like I have a grade sheet. In fact, when it was in the classroom, I have a grade sheet with 20 things they're graded on. But if a student doesn't turn in their outline, that's automatically minus 25. But they still did the speech, so I do have to give them a grade on their presentation.
So this would work for you.
Okay, it just takes a long time.
Okay. And let me give Yusra a chance here. She's had her hand up. You'll have to unmute yourself, Yusra.
Hello, is it my turn? Because I don't want to take anybody's turn.
No, you're next. You're next.
Okay, I have some questions about finishing the assignments. If I finished everything, but there is some of them I did not get all the points. Am I going to receive the certificate? Especially we are going to be done by the 30th. What's going to happen?
If you have submitted, this is in the online faculty certification program course. If you have submitted an assignment by June 30th, and if you've submitted all your assignments by June 30th, but you did not get full credit on some of them,
yes,
you will be able to resubmit the assignment for at least 2 weeks after all of your assignments are graded.
Okay.
So you will have time to resubmit any assignment that you need to increase the score on.
Okay.
And of course, your certification is contingent upon you getting 90% of the points in the class.
That's my next.
So you may have to go back and resubmit some assignments to make that, to reach that plateau, reach that level. And you will have a chance to do that after June the 30th. You'll have a chance to do that. You'll have at least 2 weeks to do that after all of your assignments are graded, because they're not going to get all the assignments graded by June 30th. No way. There's 1,000 people in that course, and there's like 7 people grading. So they're going to get it done as quickly. But everybody will have a chance to resubmit.
And about the open resource shell, I don't have it. And I think one time you mentioned if we don't have it to let you know.
Please, if you'll email me, I'll enroll you into it, and it'll show up on your dashboard.
Okay, and what?
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I think that's about the video recaption. For some reason, I did it at least 15 times, and it's not happening.
I have just finished a set of tutorials that walk you through that using all the possible options. If you're still having trouble with it, send me an email. I'll send you a link to the tutorial.
I really did all the tutorials. I even went outside to
these are new tutorials that I created specifically for this. So send me an email. I'll send you those. And hopefully that's going to save people some time on that submission. Because that's going to be a part of the next course as well.
Use Zoom. That helped me a lot too, except when I
That's one of the options.
Yeah. When I uploaded it, it did it in Vietnamese, and then it did it in Indonesian.
Okay.
I don't know. And so that took me it took a long time to transcribe. And then finally, I wrote it as a transcript, uploaded it, and it was perfect.
Yes, then you can do that. That's another way to do it. But that's a lot more complicated. You shouldn't have to do that.
I know.
And I've given some hopefully step-by-step directions on how to do that.
Yeah, because I don't know how I did that. Because of course, I should save it for any student that does speak Vietnamese, or in fact, one of the words in Vietnamese was XX porn, and I did not use the word porn at all. I said welcome. It said it was XX. It was hi XX porn welcome.
Yeah, the Captioning accuracy varies somewhat. That's why they have the editing tool in there, though it's gotten much, much better over time.
Thank you.
Okay. Unfortunately, feedback is delayed in the certification course, so we're flying blind most of the time. Yes, you are absolutely right. All we can do is apologize for that, because that course was intended, the assumption when that course was created was that we'd have 20 or 30 people a semester going through it as new faculty were hired and wanted to teach online. You know, we never imagined that everybody would be teaching online and have to shift to online teaching within one semester. That was never on anybody's radar, so we just have to apologize. That is definitely not the way we intended that course to work. Above all, that course is meant to be an example of good online instruction and the behavior on the part of the instructor. The idea, we used to have a 72-hour goal that anything that anybody submitted in that course had to be graded within 72 hours. And we met that goal for years, by and large. And then this happened. And all I can say is I'm sorry. It's not by anyone's design or desire, but that's the way it is. I apologize. April.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the questions I couldn't at the beginning because I didn't have sound.
Oh, you're hearing us now. Good.
Oh, yes, I've been here for a while. I just turned it off and on, and the 5th time was the charm.
You got the big stick out, huh?
Yeah, I too have video questions. I did a video. I had fun doing it. I did my audience in Spanish, and as I anticipated, it came out as gibberish in the captions. So I edited them, thinking that's fine. And then I found out that the people grading this, it has to be 100%. So do they allow you to use some expressions in Spanish? Because I said, hola, bien. So they
no one is going to be that picky about grading it, trust me.
Well, they say it has to be perfect. And so perfection to me means
there is no such thing as perfection in captions.
I agree. I tell that to my students. The other question I have is I discovered that when I was speaking, because I was speaking off the top of my head, I'm not an actress reciting a script, that I made 2 mistakes in my speaking. So do I have the right to correct those mistakes in the captions, or do I leave them as is? One case, the use of the singular instead of the plural. I said you're to study your likes and dislikes, and I accidentally left off the S. So I figure
on your own, you can do anything you want. Ideally, though, captions are verbatim with the what's said.
So I should really redo another video. That's what I'm getting.
You should, well, no, not for minor stumbles like that. Heavens, no.
The reason I asked is,
I guarantee you've done that in a live lecture, standing up in front of class.
Yeah, it's just they say in the directions that it has to be perfect.
No, they're not.
How to be perfect? How to be perfect?
I assure you, I've graded that question for years. No one's going to go that deeply into it. Quite frankly, what they're going to do when they're grading that thing is they're going to pull up the captions and they're going to look to see if there's a way they can tell if they've been edited at all or not. And they're going to watch the first 20 seconds of the video and watch the captions. And if everything looks good, full credit, on to the next one.
Okay, the last is my video too long? It was 1 minute and I believe 25 seconds.
No, there's no set length. Okay. It's just a matter of how long you want to spend editing captions. We recommend, I guarantee you, if you post a 20-minute video that nobody's going to watch the whole thing.
No. I wouldn't want to do that. The other question, and it's kind of a silly one. I'm enrolled for the July 1st program, and they very kindly sent us the first 2. So I did module 1. So on July 1st, I will still get, am I going to have to do it over again, or does it count?
No. As long as you did it in the new course.
Yes, I hope that's what it was.
No, certainly not. They're not going to show you more than the first 2 modules before
until July 1st. Then I'm in the right
But
program.
everything you do will still be in there. And you just have to finish by June 30th, 2021 is your only deadline.
Well, we all have different deadlines according to our schools. That's the problem.
Well, and your dean may set a different deadline for you, right? As far as we're concerned, as long as you finish by the end of the year, we're fine. So,
okay, so I enrolled on June
not have to
20th.
do anything over again.
I just want to verify. I enrolled in June 20th. I was sent the message that we have you enrolled. We're going to let you do the first two. They're accessible, but you will not have 3 and on until July 1st. So it sounds like I'm in the right track.
You're absolutely in the right place.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm in module 4, so I got to hurry it up.
Congratulations.
Let's see. How about somebody who hasn't asked a question yet?
Dave, I have a question about
Vicky.
the speed grader.
Yes.
Is the speed grader only necessary when you have to interact with grading and not for something that is automatically graded?
Right. Right. Like if this quiz had only objective questions in it, the grade would just have appeared without you having to go into the speed grader and do anything.
Right.
What the speed grader does give you, though, in this case, is a way to see the student's test submission. If you want to actually look at what they submitted, you can go into the speed grader and see that. Okay. Indeed, it's the only way you can see their submission.
All right.
But you don't have to do that. You can just accept the grade and move on. And only go and look at it if there's a question. If a student gets, say, an automatic 8 out of 10, and they say, I swear I got everything right, then you can use the speed grader. You can go in and look at their submission and see if they did or not, or see why they got deductions. But in the absence of something like that, you don't need to use the speed grader at all for a test. Everything, the graded discussions and the assignments, normally you would use the speed grader because that's how you evaluate the submission. But you might not have to. You might just look at the discussion forum and see where the students have posted and say, yeah, that's fine, and just go and manually enter the grade.
Okay.
Right there, and just type it in. So that's up to you and the circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. How about another good question about grading?
Oh, that's not about grading.
Well, I do have a question about grading it. Like for instance, if a student does something late, I don't think they should get full credit. So,
right.
So what I've been doing is putting it in fudge grades, like minus the points or something. Is that the only way to do it?
Nope. You can go to the little gear wheel here in the grade book in the upper right.
Okay.
And you can set a late submission policy by clicking there. And you can say take 10% or whatever off for every day it's late. And that's 10% off of what they get otherwise. So if they get, say, 80 points out of 100, this would knock another 8 points off that for being late, if it were late by 1 day.
For just one assignment, or is that for the whole grade? Because it looks
this is global. It affects all assignments.
Because there are some things I don't care, whereas I would want it just for that, like a test.
Yeah, this you can't set assignment by assignment, I don't think. I think you have to set it globally.
Oh, you could in Blackboard, but not there.
No.
So fudge
and you can set a floor below which you don't want them to go.
Okay, so if I want to do it for just an individual assignment, like a test, then fudging points.
You have to do it manually, yeah.
Manually.
Either just manually override the grade or add fudge points. You can just manually override a grade at any time.
Yeah, which I've had to do, but then the students like, oh, I got this, and then I also, it's hard to remember.
Right. You can even manually override a test grade if you need to, I think.
Yeah, I've done that too. Yeah, that I've done, but it's just like it's hard to remember. Did I take the grade off or not, or did I not? And I have to write it somewhere. And
well, if you set that universal policy, then
so that's
it's done automatically. But that covers everything. That's correct.
Okay.
Yusra.
Okay, Dr. Dave, about those questions at the end for certification. There's maybe 15 or more.
Right.
About, yes, but if I never taught a course online, it doesn't apply. And I left some of the questions without any answers. What to do about this,
You
please?
can't do that. You have to envision what you would do if you were teaching a course online. But you must answer all of the questions in the that final instrument in order to get certified.
So
basically, it's a statement of intention. We're just looking if we ever get audited during an accreditation visit, and they pull up your course, and they say, or no, this wouldn't be your course. They pull up John Doe's course, and John Doe hasn't done something in that course that should have been done. We want a place to go to show that John Doe said he would do that. We'll be able to pull up his certification statement and see where he averred that he was going to do that. Well, this was his intention, and he didn't do it. So we can demonstrate that John Doe knew at one point at least that he was supposed to do that.
But do you
then that becomes a problem for John Doe and not for the district or for online learning pathways.
So sometimes do we need to write what you like to hear or what we really feel?
No, there are no right or wrong. There are no right or wrong answers on those.
Because sometimes I put my feelings in it. So
if we see something that is demonstrably incorrect, we will give you some feedback on that and ask you to redo it. That rarely happens, particularly right now when we're trying to get through them as quickly as possible. But no, there are no right or wrong answers there. And the only grade that you will get on each one of those assessment items is a 0. The 0 indicates that you answered it.
Okay.
Nothing in that blank indicates you didn't. So the total grade for the assessment will be 0. We're using an assessment in a way that is sort of a value-added application. It's not really meant to, the certification statement is not meant to be graded. We're just meant to ensure that you've answered each one of those questions, and then we have a record of that. That's all it is. And you express your intentions and give your reasons. Many of them are free, they're essay type questions. So you can say anything you want, and anything you say, any opinion you express or anything like that will not affect whether you get certified.
Nothing will be against me.
No, nobody's going to hold it against you. We want the feedback.
Yeah, but if it's
that's the other purpose of that, is to get feedback from people at the end of the course.
Yeah, but if it's too brief, they won't give you the points. I got that. If they say, oh, I've got something I thought they answered the question, but they wanted more details, so I would have to get more points. So that is kind of what Yusra is saying. So you do have to, you can't just say, oh, I'm never going to do this, but if so, then right, I'm never going to do this, but this is what you should do.
It depends on the question within the thing. Some things we insist on hearing certain things that are regulatorily required, but you'll be given a chance to redo it. I mean, it's not like anybody's going to fail because of the certification statement. I
Yeah,
assure you.
do not add up, but now that you explain how the rubrics is done, because like there was a question that had 7 parts and the points didn't add up. Like if I got something where it's like 2.4 out of 3 points, and the points didn't add up by if I just missed 1. So if I missed 2, so, and they must have said each one is worth 0.6 points, but 7 times 0.6 doesn't add up. So, but now that I saw what you did in terms of if they get this, they get 0.3, they get 3 points, they get 2 points. So
you
somehow,
can set that partial credit in the rubric to be any value you want.
yeah, because I added the points up mathematically, and I don't teach math, but I can add.
Right.
And they did.
Yeah, and they may have been using the rubric to grade that, indeed.
So now I understand.
I do have another question here that might be of interest to a number of people in the chat tool, and it was, how do we do a screenshot? That is going to depend a little bit upon what software you have and what type of computer you're on. I can demonstrate in Windows, you always have the snipping tool. It's a part of Windows.
My favorite.
You can go to it by going to your start button, your Windows button, and searching, or just search for snipping tool in the search box. The snipping tool will pop up as an option. You just click on it, and up comes a little window. To use it, you just click New, and everything kind of goes funky. And I don't know if you're still hearing me or not. I don't know what this is doing to Zoom. Then I can just click and drag and select a section of the screen and let up. And I get an advertisement because I've installed Snagit. You won't see that. All right, that's a screenshot. That's all there is to taking a screenshot with a snipping tool. I hope you saw that. I'm not sure what that did to the Zoom screen share.
We can see
and pardon?
We can see it.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. And now you just save it. The snipping tool can save, I think it only saves, no, you can save it as a PNG, a program network graphic, a GIF, a JPEG, or a single file web page, which only Microsoft uses. So I'd pick, one of the standard files, a JPEG. PNGs are nice. They're higher quality, lower size. And you just save it in your picture. You can rename it and save it, and then use it wherever you need to. The new way to make a screenshot that I am in love with now is TechSmith Capture, the new Jing. If you have that running, I don't have it running in my system tray right now, but I do have it running in the background. This is the little icon. It's sort of like the old Jing icon. And where'd it go? That's my preview. I don't want that. Cancel. Close preview. All right. Here we go. Here's what it looks like. It just pops up when you click the icon. Normally, if you have it running all the time, you will see a little icon like this down in your system tray down here in Windows. I'm not sure how that's going to work on the Mac. It does work on the Mac as well. So you've got a capture button. You just click that capture button and you get a selection cursor. Now you can just, like the snipping tool, you can just click, go to the upper left-hand corner, and I fumbled that, sorry. Let me do that again. Capture, go to the upper left-hand corner of what you want to take, or take a screenshot of. Click and hold with the mouse button, drag it down to the right, the lower right-hand corner, what you want. And there's your selection. Then you just click capture an image. And there it is. You can edit it, add call outs into which you can type text. You can highlight things. You can draw shapes around stuff. And then when you're done, you can either just save the file to your pictures as a PNG, and I guess that's the only option in this one, which is a perfectly good option. And you can rename it. Capture 1 or whatever. Save it. You can also you can create a free account at screencast.com, which is an online screenshot and video hosting service similar to YouTube, except that this one comes with limitations. You have to pay for it if you want more than 2 gigabytes of space. But you can upload just instantly to your screencast.com account. Wow. And it gives you a link to that snip. So you can put that in an email and people can click on that link and pull up your screenshot. It's a neat little tool and it's completely free. Just Google TechSmith Capture. And here there's an app for the iPhone, unfortunately not one for Android yet. And there's the one for the computer, that's the second one, the one that has Jing in it. And without any cost, you can download it and install it on your computer, where you can have it running anytime so that if you need a screenshot real quick, you can just pull it up and boom. And it will also record video, just as Jing would. It will do screencasting. But with Jing, you had a 5-minute limit on your video. All that TechSmith will say about capture is that you can record longer videos than you could with Jing. I pushed it today. I turned it on and just left it running for a while, and it recorded a 30-minute video before I got tired and shut it off. So it'll record at least 30 minutes. They're being cagey about that. They may change that limit at some point. Right now, it looks like there's probably no limit, but I can't be sure of that. And they may change that in the future. But it is way better than Jing ever was, and it's just as free. People will say, well, Screencast-O-Matic is free too. Well, Screencast-O-Matic is free as long as you don't want to record more than 15 minutes with a screencast. In point of fact, if you're going to use Screencast-O-Matic for screencasting to any extent at all, you're going to end up paying $20 a year for it, which is hardly excessive, but it ain't free either. This, as near as I can tell, is completely free and has far more capability than the original Jing did, and indeed it looks a lot like TechSmith's Snagit, which is a commercial screenshot and video screencasting tool, which you can have for a one-time cost of about $30 as an educator. This will do about 90% of what I do with Snagit every day. I use Snagit multiple times every day. And I paid my 30 bucks, and I paid to upgrade it several times too. And here comes TechSmith Capture, which will do like I say, 80 or 90% of what I do with Snagit for free. Oh, well. So it looks like a terrific tool. So that's an answer to that question. Let me see. They will be asked to add a discussion when we create our Canvas shell. Oh, you mean in the training course, I assume? I can't remember. I think you are. Let me make sure that's still in there. Assignments.
I think that's small.
I have access to the assignments list in this. You don't. Create create a discussion is assignment 6.8. Yes, you will be asked to do that. And I did show you how to do that, I believe. My class is a hybrid. Can I have a calculated grade column with lab score and lecture score averaged somehow? Well, you can put your lab exercises in a separate assignment group, and they would be averaged into the overall grade according to whatever weights you set. What you can't do in the Canvas gradebook is do things like you can do in Excel, where you create a column that's an average of 2 other columns or a sum of 2 other columns specifically selected. You can't do that with Canvas's gradebook, is even though it looks a little bit like a spreadsheet, does not have that kind of functionality. That's the kind of thing you'd have to offload the grades into Excel to do, and then load them back into Canvas after you've done that. So I'm not quite certain what this person is getting at. I'll have to send them an email and ask about that. How do you create like test 1 student on a gradebook to play with it? Well, you can't create test students in your course, but you don't need to because you already have one. Let me go back to that course I was playing with and make sure I get the right one this time. Grading in Canvas, this one. I swear I put that up there and it moved it. Okay. If I go to the gradebook here, I have these test students, but you can't do it. These are accounts that I have administrative access to the system. I created these student accounts and I manually enrolled them into my shell. You can't create those accounts, but you have a test student that you can activate simply by going to your home link in your course and going into Student View. When you go into Student View, you're not just seeing the course as your students do, you're logged in as a test student. Indeed, the student is called test student. And anything the test student does while he or she is in there, depending on your particular situation, is recorded in the course. For instance, the test student can submit an assignment, assuming that it's available to students, and go to submit a, oh, and there's let me back out a second. I had a question earlier about where do the students see the rubric? Right there. When they go to submit to the page where they can read the assignment instructions, they see the rubric. Okay, so if this student submits this assignment by choosing a file, because this was a file upload assignment, and there's a screencasting definition that I can use. And then the student submits the assignment after, again, looking at the rubric to see if they're definition meets the standard, hopefully. All right, that test student has now submitted that assignment. That's a real submission. If I leave student view without resetting the student, just leave what the student has done in the course and now go back to the gradebook, I now have a new row in the gradebook for my test student. And there's that submission. And I can go in and I can practice grading that submission just like I could a submission by an actual student. I can view the rubric, the whole 9 yards. So that student is a real student, or is treated by Canvas like a real student. As long as you don't reset the student at some time you're going in and out of student view, everything that test student does stays in the course. So that is a very powerful troubleshooting tool. If students are having trouble with an assignment, you can go and take and submit the assignment as your test student and see what's going on and see exactly what they see and see if you can figure out what's going on.
So Dave, I have a question about that. So I tried to do that because that's part of the assignment for 6.12. And when I went in and, you know, I did exactly like through the development shell, then the, you go to the settings and then student view and then modules and then select an assessment. And then there was no blue submit box. Is it possible? I mean, I looked at it last night.
Probably there was a problem with the assignment dates or something like that.
Oh, because yeah, I'm trying to finish
that test student won't be able to submit the assignment if you haven't made it available to students.
Oh, thank you. Because yeah, I did it for the fall.
Yep, that would do it.
Okay, so then good.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that shows how valuable that test student is. If you want to make sure your students can submit an assignment, try submitting it as your test student. And if your test student can do it, the chances are 95% plus that your real students can do it too.
Yeah, I was trying to finish this last night and like I could not figure it out because like I said, it wouldn't let me, it wouldn't have a blue submit. So now do I go back to the create assignment and then try to fix it from there?
Yeah, and you can change the dates. And then your test student should be able to submit it.
Okay, is that tricky? Like I just go back, I mean.
No, you just go to back to the assignment.
Okay.
And click on it.
Okay.
And edit it.
Okay.
And you'll have access again to your dates. And you just change the dates there and remember to save the changes.
Okay, and then
I always forget.
Right there, I also had another question on the assign because so is generally the due date and the until date usually the same date?
About 90% of the time, yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have some specific reason to allow the students to submit late, perhaps for a reduced credit or something like that.
Okay, so now I have that clear, but also when I look at my own modules, not the ones I created, but the homework, to get certified, why is it on 1.1, it's pre-assessment non-grade quiz. I took it and I got all the points for it. And the same with 4.8, create a course outline. I did it and I received all the points for it, but neither one of those have a little check mark in the little circle.
That's not entirely consistent in Canvas. The non-graded thing is not required. So it's not part of the grade. So there's really no way for you to aver that you've done it. The other one, can't remember the details on that. There are times when that check mark doesn't show up or the blue dot doesn't show up.
So
don't worry about that.
Okay.
As long as you get the receipt that says you submitted it after you submitted it, you're golden. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, because if you double click on 4.8, like I said, it doesn't have the check mark that I did it, but on the right-hand side, it says, great job, 5 out of 5, you know, but it doesn't
Your
show that it was
homework.
done.
That's the gold standard. Don't worry about the check mark.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Let's see if there's anything else in here in the chat tool that I've missed.
I might have missed if you answered one of my questions previously. I would
Oh,
love
I'll
to
answer it again. No problem. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I would love it if other professors at other schools told me that there's a chat feature so that students can do like a live action but virtual role play. Do we not have that in our
That is not implemented on our system. There is
Okay.
a Canvas chat feature that we do not have implemented, and I don't know why.
Is there another tool you would recommend? Like, could they do a one-on-one conference Zoom?
Certainly they can create, one or more of them can create their own free Zoom account. It wouldn't be a Confer Zoom. Confer Zoom accounts are just Zoom Pro accounts paid for by the state.
Okay. So,
which you
there's
get
no way-
for free because you're a faculty member. Students, however, can create a free Zoom account just by going to the Zoom website at zoom.us.
Okay. I think most of my students had that at the end of the semester, you know, or past semester.
Yeah, why not? Because everybody's using Zoom for everything.
Yeah.
And they can just sign up, and the limitations are not all that restrictive on the free account.
Well, the
main
reason
limitations are that you can only have 100 people in the meeting instead of 300, like we have in the Confer Zoom accounts. And the meetings are nominally limited to 40 minutes duration. But what they don't tell you is you can just start another meeting immediately and have everybody rejoin, and you can keep going for another 40 minutes.
Okay.
Also, if you are doing a one-on-one meeting, the 40-minute time limit doesn't apply.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good to know. But I was
that's about
hoping
it.
to be able to look over their role play. And so they'd probably have to record it and send it to me if I wanted to see
Right.
it.
They'd have to record it and send you the link to it. And, or send you, they could probably, well, the files get quite large if it's more than if the meeting's more than a minute or so. It'll probably be too big to email.
Okay.
And with a free Zoom account, their only option is to record to their local computer. They can't record directly to the Zoom cloud with a free account.
Okay.
So what they would have to do is record, have it stored on their local hard drive, and then upload it to YouTube. And then send you the link to the YouTube video. And we just happen to have a tutorial. If you look at our Zoom tutorials.
Oh, okay.
Recording. Let me search for Zoom recording here. Here's recording to your local computer in Zoom and loading the recording onto YouTube, step by step. I'm not sure how long that one is. It's not too long. Let's see. Oh God, they always catch you with your mouth open. Sorry. It's about 13 minutes long.
Recording.
Because there's a lot of things going on there. It's a little bit of a task, but there's nothing in it that costs anybody any money or should be that difficult for anyone to do. If they can record, if they can use Zoom, they can almost certainly do this. And they can access this site at sdccdolvid.org. And hopefully they won't see the management menus there, but they'll see everything else. And let me put that in the chat tool for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
There's lots of other useful stuff in there. We hope it's useful.
Does it have your code for getting rid of those ads?
Oh, yeah. There it is in the chat tool.
Okay.
Remember, I think I'm sharing this with you. You can, yeah, I'm still sharing my screen. You can save this chat tool by going to the little more button here in the lower right-hand corner and clicking Save Chat. And that will, you have to be on a computer to do that.
Oh,
and
I'm
then,
on a Chromebook.
Yeah, oh, yeah, Chromebook should be able to do it. As far as I know, that will work with a Chromebook. And it'll go to a folder in your documents, default documents folder on PC or Mac, into a subfolder called Zoom. And under that, there will be another subfolder, in my case, a lot of recordings, Zoom recordings, but it'll be marked with today's date and the time we started, which was about just before 2 o'clock.
Okay.
And you can open that up, and meeting saved chat.txt is your chat log. You just double click it on either PC or Mac, and it will come up as a text file.
Great.
And that link will be in it. Now, also, we record almost every one of these Zoom meetings we've done, except in a couple of cases where somebody, who will remain nameless, forgot to start the recording. But absent that, we have a recording at the top of the screen in this on-demand site. There's a menu bar, and there's a button for Workshop Archives. If you click on that, all of our recordings are there. So you can go back and you can fast forward through them and find what you need. They are lengthy. What have we been at it today for 3 hours and 18 minutes now? So you do have to do some fast forwarding to find what you want, but you can do that because they're YouTube. They're all actually stored on YouTube. This video, and you can, just scrub through the video, grab the little scrubber button and scrub through it. You can sort of see what's going on in behind it. And you just get to where you're looking. Laura, do not believe it is. That's where I went to the wrong website. I remember that. So
it's about Amara.
Yeah, wrong Amara, sorry. I went to amara.com when I meant to go to amara.org. Thank goodness the worst thing that happened was that I went to a website where somebody wanted to sell me something. I did that in a library bibliographic instruction session some years ago, and I went to the wrong website by mistyping the URL for the New York Times by one letter. And what came up was definitely not part of the news that was fit to print. The students loved it, at least the males did. Oh boy, so that could have been a lot worse. Okay, so that's there whenever those recordings are always there. This one will be up there in another day or so.
Oh, good.
Are they alphabetical or chronological?
Chronological.
Okay.
But you can search for a particular course, like grading.
Okay.
If you want we've done this grading seminar beaucoup times.
Dr. Dave?
So there's grading in Canvas from May 22nd, from April 29th, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way back to March.
Dr. Dave?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure where to go first, so I'll just go to File, and after File,
I'm sorry, I lost something there.
Okay, on the chat box,
Yes.
so to save this, I'll go to File, right?
No, go to the little More menu, which is just to the right of where it says File.
Oh, I see it. I see it now.
Let me see if I can blow that up.
Okay, and save chat, right?
Yeah, right here. It says, yeah, this is your chat window, but this is the More button. It's 3 little dots in a row.
Okay.
And you
Yeah.
click that, and then there's an option to save the chat.
Okay. Click there and save chat. Thank you so much. I got it.
You bet.
Thank you.
Oh, darn it. I didn't mean to close that. Yeah, it's back. Okay. Anybody
David.
else? I got nowhere else to be. Let me know if you have more questions.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you so much. Thank
You're
you.
certainly welcome, Yusra. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have another quick question on 6.112. When we use the Speedgrader, it just says do it on an assignment. So is like a quiz an easy,
No,
kind of like the easy way?
they mean a homework assignment.
Oh, I'm glad I asked. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to create one?
That's where you get into that morass with Canvas using the word assignment so loosely to mean different things in different contexts, which is, last time I checked, that's a really poor idea. So I don't know why they do that. Well, I tell you why I think they do that. Because in Blackboard, the word that's used is assessments. And they didn't want to mimic Blackboard in any way they could avoid. Partly to avoid being sued by Blackboard, and partly because they wanted to make Canvas as distinct a choice from Blackboard as possible. But that's just my nasty, suspicious mind. Anyway, sorry about that.
So again, it's homework, and that's why we did the rubric. I thought it was like the chapter before. Though.
Yeah, I think so.
Which one is that?
6.12 is.
Pull it up here.
Yeah.
Oh, 6.1.2.
Because they're very, like you said, they're very loose with the word assignment. Because
boy, are they!
I almost did it on my.
And it's not really the people who designed this course's fault. It's Instructure's fault, because Instructure uses the word Canvas or assignment so loosely, or so inconsistently. Let's see. That's 6.12, right?
Yes.
Let's pull that up. Use the Speedgrader. In your Canvas practice shell, use the test student to complete and submit something for the assignment. And that's where they mean homework. They should have said homework assignment to clarify that, because that's consistently used in Canvas. I'll make a note of that, because they're improving. They try to improve this course all the time, and they do a major overhaul every year. So I'll mention that one should, that causes confusion. But they mean a homework assignment there. Yeah.
I did a test on it. I did a test.
Well, they may let you get away with it. Quite honestly, it just depends on how tired the person grading it is and how many they've got left to do.
Okay, I want him to be tired this time.
Yeah, right. You want somebody who's right at the end of the day and is ready to give you full credit.
Like me, more than 200 hours, please, for give us a break.
Well, I have, and I know a lot of that time that you spent spinning your wheels was engendered by the fact that you couldn't move on and try something else.
And don't know the vocabulary, maybe.
That assignment. And I strongly represented your concerns in a meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. I don't know whether they're going to take out that requirement or not, but at least your concerns have been heard.
You know what? I didn't have any trouble. I haven't done 6.12, but I already did 6.13, 6.14. So it's letting me do it.
Well, it depends on the module and the specific assignment. Some assignments they won't let you go past.
Oh, okay.
And I have suggested that may not, perhaps, while there is a pedagogical justification for doing that.
Yeah.
And I think the frustration it intends to engender is probably not worth the slight increase in pedagogical efficacy that doing that engenders. That's a personal opinion on my part. Not everybody agrees with that, but that's what I suggested. So we'll see what happens.
When we go in as the test student, we actually do the homework, because my homework was like to do a food log. So I have to type out a whole food log apparently, and then save it.
I'd you know, do the minimum necessary. I don't think they're really going to be looking at grading your at you know how they just want to see that you know how to use the Speedgrader and so on. That's, you could do a very bad job as the test student and so indicate in the Speedgrader, and they'd be perfectly happy.
Okay.
I haven't gotten that far, but it sounds like they're grading us in that test, the D shell, that we have to create assignments. I thought that was just for practice. They are going to D shell and grade.
A lot of these assignments in Module 6, and Karen, I saw you, or Kristen, I'm sorry, I saw you. I'll be right back to you. They're asking you to do things in the practice course and then give them the URL for what you did in the practice course, so they don't have to go and log into your practice course and so on and find it and so on, but they are going to go into your practice course and look at it. Yes. And Kristen, what was your question?
Oh, I actually had two that are related to grading.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I encountered, unfortunately, a lot of cheating issues, you know, once we shifted from face-to-face to online. And I wondered how we interpret the log on graded quizzes. Is there anything useful with that?
Loosely.
Okay.
It's imperfect at best. You can see a widespread pattern of abuse, but it's not, it gives you an overall idea of how the student was doing, but there's no, it's very difficult to point to specific instances of wrongdoing with that. Like it says when the student left the test and so on, they didn't leave the test. They just spent some time looking at a question and it reached some time threshold and so on. That is not the most reliable part of Canvas, and even Instructure admits you should interpret that loosely. They're working on improving it, but it's not great.
Because I had open book and open note tests, which was recommended when I took the Blackboard certification course.
Yes, that's one way to.
but I still,
you can use anything except another student. Yeah, and
right. Like, the only trouble is there were test bank questions from publishers that I use, not all of them, but some, and they can find those in half a second online.
Quite often they can find those online because somebody will have gotten a hold of a copy of that and posted it online on sites dedicated to that sort of thing. Yes.
Okay. So I just need to change my questions or my assessments. There's not really a good tool.
Ideally, yeah, you would write your own questions, but I know that is not always possible under the press of time, but it's nice if you can at least change it enough that if somebody's just pulled one off the internet, it assure them that the answer is not the right answer. But just sometimes changing the order of the answers is enough. But yeah, that's a problem. Those publishers' test banks, especially if they've been out there for any length of time, been available for any length of time, are not secure.
I even created many of my own, and I tested it, and I could find, you know, there were too many terms that would pull up the answer anyway, even though it wasn't from the test bank. You know, it would be an article.
If they can search the internet with Google, they can find the answers to most objective questions. Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can scramble it. That's what I did, and I put in more questions so that no two students have the same questions. And at least
but that doesn't stop unless you set a fairly tight time limit.
Yeah.
That doesn't prevent them from Googling the answer, and they can do that. So that's one of the best reasons for setting a time limit on a test, is so that they don't have time to go and search for the answer for every question, because they can certainly find it if they have time.
Yeah.
And a reasonable, well, and when I was sitting at my mentor's knee, they said maybe about a minute per multiple choice question is reasonable.
That's what I did, and I'm pretty sure that some students who'd gone from, you know, an F on the first 2 tests to 100% or 98% on the last 2 tests, you know, once we made the switch from face to face, I just saw a pattern. I suspected it, but there's no way to prove anything.
Something going on. Yeah, high stakes objective tests are dangerous in an online environment.
I'll definitely change that.
That's why things like homework assignments are so much more desirable. Yes, they take a lot more time to grade, but they're much harder to game.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing was, unfortunately, I had students that were copying text from the internet and posting it into their assignments.
Oh, yeah.
And I used Unicheck, but I wasn't exactly sure how to interpret that either, because sometimes it was a popular activity or assignment that teachers can purchase, and then it would come up flagged because it was the same assignment, you know.
Right. Interpreting those Unicheck results has to be done very carefully.
Is that a separate
it might be something that the student wouldn't have had access to. Or, you know, it's the, or it may be such a common phrase that it's going to be flagged no matter who wrote it.
Right, exactly.
So, or there may be large portions of a paragraph flagged because the student is using words that you'd almost have to use to answer that question.
Yeah.
So
well, I had some that were
plagiarism checkers are of limited value in that case.
Okay.
Quite frankly, their deterrent value is their greatest value, because students will think that they're better than they are. It's like hooking someone up to a polygraph and telling them it'll blow their arm off if they lie.
Right.
Will it? No, but if you make them think it will, they're probably not going to lie to you. So,
right. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
So Dave, while we were waiting, I went back to 6.12. I'm sorry, I keep bringing it up, but so I fixed the dates, but that didn't change the thing that I still don't have a blue submit button for the student to submit anything.
Let's see. Let me share my screen.
When I watch the video, it shows that there's one up in the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting one. So
let me think. Let me go into your practice course. This is in your practice course. You're having this issue, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be need to search for that. It's going to be D-shell.
Gregory.
And what's the rest of yours say?
Then it's dash S Gregory.
S Gregory. Let's see. There it is.
This is great.
Okay. Yeah, and Zoom Wonder. And the administrative tools in Canvas are pretty good too. Okay, now you're going into Student View, right?
Yeah, but before that, didn't you hit? I went to Settings and then Student View. Or
yeah, or you can do it from the home screen.
Okay.
Either way, there's 2 places you can enter Student View.
Okay, so I'm definitely.
All right, now we're going to go to the modules.
Okay.
And it's which one?
1.4 food log.
Got it. And there's no submit button. Let's see if we can figure out why. We'll leave Student View. And I'm going to go in as I have de facto instructor status here. So let me go in and take a look at that.
Power.
It's handy. I'll go to that assignment, 1.4. There it is. Now let's edit it and take a look and see if we can figure out why that's not showing up for your test student. Ah,
on paper.
right there.
You didn't want it on paper? Oh, okay.
Nope. It's got to be an online, in order for the submit button to show up, it's got to be an online submission.
I saw that, but I didn't,
And
okay,
probably by file upload.
okay.
Now let's save that and see if that did the trick. Never assume. Yeah, you can go to either settings or home to get to the student view.
Okay.
And then student view. And now, if I go to 1.4.
Okay.
There it is.
So can you double click on the, it says click here for the food log. So the student's supposed to I guess open that up and then type on it. But I left it as a PDF, so I have to fix it.
Yeah, they're not likely to gig you for that in your practice course. But if you're actually having students do this, you probably want a Word document instead of a PDF.
Yeah.
Or they can print the PDF out.
Well, that's why I wrote on paper.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. But in this case, they still have to be able to submit it. On paper is designed for a situation where the student does the assignment in class or at home and brings it into class and hands it to you on a piece of paper. That's what that means.
So how should I do this? Like, I mean, I could print it out, fill it out, and then take a picture of it and upload it.
Correct.
But
you could have them do that. Yes.
Well, I'm the student. Yeah. But what I'm saying so I can submit it, if you were to hit submit assignment right now, where do I pull, will it show me a place? Yeah, I'll go to choose file. Okay.
Choose file. This is the assignment Dropbox, it's called.
Okay.
And you just choose file, and then you have to be able to find that file,
sure. Yeah.
that picture. Either you have to upload that picture from, if you took it with your phone, which is likely, you have to upload that file to your computer.
Yeah.
Which some students may or may not be comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Or you can plug your phone into the computer and access the picture storage on the phone.
Yeah.
But especially on an iPhone, that's very ticky.
Yeah. But next time I'll just do it on a Word doc. But
Word doc would be a lot safer.
I could fix it now, but I'm not. Do I just go back and edit 1.4 food log like I edited the dates?
Yes.
Okay.
But I will tell you that's you're not going to get gigged for that in the grading.
Oh, okay.
That's what you'd want to do if you were actually doing this with your students. But I can't imagine they're going to get that deep into it.
Okay.
And if they do, then you can go in and edit it. I wouldn't bother unless I was asked, quite frankly.
Because I wanted to finish last night and celebrate today that I was all done with
I hear
this
you.
class. But this one thing kept hooking, messing me up.
I was going to add, based on my experience in the last semester too, anytime you can avoid printing, at least with my students, it's good because some of mine didn't have them or they're out of ink.
Some of them don't have printers.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But yeah, going forward, definitely a Word doc.
Yeah,
and
good idea.
they may be taking your course on their smartphone.
Oh.
And they can do that with Canvas. They couldn't with Blackboard, but they can with Canvas. It's exceptionally mobile friendly, but there's some extra steps involved. And they have to download free apps that they need and so on. But like on a smartphone, Microsoft Word is free. And they can download Word and they can create documents. They can dictate documents and do speech to text on the phone effectively. And so it's possible for them to do that, but it's a good idea to keep in the back of your mind that some of your students not only don't have printers, they don't have computers either.
Yeah.
So to do that assignment, you have to make certain you create it as an online assignment, even if you don't plan on doing that for your real class? Is that what?
Yes, in this case, yes, absolutely. Because in your real class, your students may be able to hand it in to you, in that wonderful future when we can all be in the same room again. They may hand it to you on paper, and that's fine. But for now, it's going to have to be an online submission because that's the only options we have.
Thank you, Sharon, for pointing that out.
That's why the question period here is the best part of the session, because things like that come out that were never thought of otherwise. Thank you for the question, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. That's why I'm always the bitter ender.
Me too.
Yeah, I've seen that elephant just a few times.
It's too late for me to know that. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Dave.
fun.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Alrighty,
Bye.
everybody. Any other questions?
Well, mine is not a testing question, but since I did have a problem logging in when I was, because they said that the YouTube automatically transcribes things, but remember I said I had the problem of they did it in Vietnamese and then the second time they did it in Indonesian. Is there a way to change that setting?
Yes, you can set the language for the default language for a YouTube video by once you upload it, and before the automatic captions appear, you can go into your video. Let me just pull one up here.
Okay, you're not sharing your screen yet.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Thank you. I just turned it off too, didn't I? There we go.
I just see your.
All right, now I'm in YouTube. I pull up a video in my YouTube studio.
Okay.
Let me go back to where I can do that. Show you how to do that. I click on me or my initials. Go to YouTube Studio. And go to my video list over here on the left. That's how you see the videos that you have uploaded. And you go to the details page for the video. Just mouse over the video icon and click on the pencil. And go to the subtitles list here. And you may be automatically prompted to set the language, which would be English US.
Or Arabic.
But there's a problem with that. Arabic is not one of the languages that they will do automatic captions in.
No.
There are only about a dozen languages that YouTube will create automatic captions in. You can create English captions and then your viewers can translate them into Arabic, but you can't create Arabic captions automatically, or most of these other languages. There are only about a dozen languages that YouTube will actually do automatic captioning in from scratch. And those are mostly major European languages, English, obviously, and I think Chinese, but I'm not sure about Chinese. I saw a list of it somewhere. I don't have that at my fingertips. But anyway, we'll select and then confirm now when the automatic captions are created, they'll be created in the default language for the video, assuming that language is one of the ones that's supported.
How about the accent? The accent, does it matter?
Accent marks and so on? I don't know. It varies with the language as to how effective that is.
Okay.
I honestly don't know because I can't speak Spanish to it and try it. I suspect it's imperfect.
Okay.
But anyway, setting that default language is, and you can add a language as well, but setting that default language is what determines what the captions are created in.
Okay, so I thought my default, it looked like it was set, but like I
And
said,
sometimes YouTube just
doesn't like.
Yeah, it doesn't do it right.
Doesn't like accents.
So there, probably what you do there is you delete the video and upload it again.
Yeah, well, that's what I did. I just created another one. And then the second time it came out Indonesian. I said, I don't understand because I said the English, so I need to call someone. I'll try it again once I finish.
Sure, what might have happened there. If you want to,
I'll try.
If you have one of those, you still have one of those videos. If you want to send it to me, I can give you like a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive folder that you can upload it to, and I can try it, see if I can figure out what's going on.
Okay, but anyway, I submitted it, and like I said, I did the transcript, and so I accomplished that assignment. But I'll try when I do it for the students.
Yeah, you did something that was harder than what the assignment asked for, so yeah, that's great.
It took me hours. I understand what Yusra was saying. It's like I tried typing it in, doing it individually, and then it was like one of those
dozens. Believe me, dozens. I did it a lot.
Yeah,
and it's not working.
It worked immediately.
Well, I do hope this new tutorial I've done will help some with that. And then you're always welcome to ask me questions when you're having trouble too.
Okay.
You just email that to me. So, okay. Anything else?
No, that's fine. Thank
we
you.
always find something else, but I think we took a lot of your time today, especially me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I have set aside this time for you, so not to worry.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
I
you
will,
so much.
hopefully I'll see some of you in another session sometime.
I think Friday there is the last one.
Well, there's another one on Friday.
Yes.
But I'm good. We have a schedule that we're going to maintain. They've asked me to keep doing this for the next fiscal year.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be doing this
I'll be watching
until the end of June of 2021.
You are going to see me a lot then. Thank you.
That reminds me, do we not have flex credit for these sessions? I don't think
Unfortunately, these sessions taking place in June, they don't award flex credit for.
Oh, okay. I'll earn plenty with
Starting
my
again in July, there will be flex numbers.
Okay.
And we'll be offering a okay. All right, that set of statements will be forever unrecorded. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Thanks.